Welcome back to another Thirsty Thursdays. It's your boy Adam Robb, and today we have my good friend James Umbaugh.
Hi guys.
Welcome to the channel.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be.
Now, James, would you say you're a beer connoisseur?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to say I'm an expert or anything like that. I like drinking beer. I like the history, culture, processes, pairings, trying new stuff. So yeah. I do all right. I'd like to say I'm not a snob. I'm more of an enthusiast.
I like that.
That's a fancy name for saying drunk.
Yeah.
So, I'm just kidding.
You brought us 3 beers today.
Mm-hmm.
And we kind of have like a little sampling situation going on. So I guess walk us through what we're going to be drinking,
Sure.
And then we'll dive into the first one, and then we'll get it rolling.
So I bought 3 different styles. I've drank a lot of different kinds of beers. We were talking about Untapped earlier. I've tried 5,000 plus different beers over my time of drinking, so I decided I wanted to do some of my favorites.
Those are unique beers, right?
Yeah, some of them are like, it might be a 2018 version of a stout that's been barrel aged versus a 2019, but, sometimes, especially with different breweries, it tastes different, and you get a different effect depending on how long you sit on it. But I wanted to bring some of my favorite breweries and some of my favorite styles of beer with me, so the first one that we did, I'll pull that up for you, that's going to be... this is out of Cincinnati, Ohio. This is Urban Artifacts, and we went with Gyroscope Midwest Fruit Tart Ale, so it's going to be a sour ale. And then after we discuss that, we've got, my brain just stopped. The brewery on this right here is, it's not, I've had it how many times? The Old Nation. They're out of Michigan. This is Boss Tweed. This is a New England style double IPA, which I can talk about what a double IPA means when we get there. And then last but not least, we have the Bourbon Barrel Aged 3 Philosophers by Umbaugh Brewing Company. They're out of Cooperstown, New York. So that's going to be a Belgian-style ale that has a Belgian Creek in it, which is a cherry ale. It tends to be tart. That's kind of a blend, so like almost a cuvee. And we'll kind of break them down as we go.
Alrighty.
One thing that I like to do with sour ales, especially ones that are fruity and can have a lot of pulp, beers like this can have sediment in them. So if you don't pour it right or something like that, you might end up chewing on it, which if you've ever had like orange juice with that extra pulp, It's not quite to that effect because you don't have that acidity as much and breakdown. So what you do to that is you place it down on a flat surface. This one might not need it, but better to be safe than sorry. I know some of them do. And you just kind of give it a gentle roll. Now you don't want to obviously do it too much because then you have a mess when you try to open it.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So what does that do to when you roll it?
So, like for instance, they have another one that's called Landline that's almost like drinking I think it's a strawberry banana. It might be a raspberry banana. Please don't quote me on that. But it's very thick, and what that does is all that builds up that can build up on the sides and build up in the bottom. So when you pour it, you're not getting all those fruit pulps and stuff like that. Like we'll discuss that with this IPA as well. But what that does is it redistributes throughout the beer, so you're getting your full flavor, your full texture, or mouthfeel if you want to use the beer drinking nerd terms. But yeah, so we'll start with this guy. We'll try to give a good pour up front so you can see this beautiful color on it. It's got a nice deep rosy red purplish color because it's raspberry.
Nice.
And I know you said you had pulled up some information on it.
Oh yeah, let's see. Which one was this one?
This is the gyroscope. Yeah, the gyroscope. Mm-hmm.
All right, so it says a Midwest fruit tart ale made with 2,600 pounds of raspberries and 45 grams of vanilla per 30 BBL batch.
It says BBL.
Yeah.
I believe that's just how it's matched for the barrels. I'm not 100% sure on what BBL means. I think it's something liter.
Yeah, bourbon barrel liter.
I don't know if it's bourbon barrel, but yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah, I'm not 100%, because I'm not in the beer industry. So
yeah, I'm surprised that you aren't though.
I mean, I've worked in the craft beer. I worked at craft beer at a local grocery store, and I've helped do some like homebrew stuff, but I haven't actually fully been in like officially in like a craft beer thing. So give it a good smell, right? Yeah.
Oh wow, that's like opening up like
a juice.
Yeah. Oh man, whew, that is tarty. I love tart anything really.
Sure.
So.
Yeah, sour beers are kind of cool because in order to get a beer to sour, you have to use different. So like obviously to get alcohol into something, you let the yeast ferment with sugar. That's what the malt is. With sour beers, they're usually wild yeast strains, so they're yeast that you can't control quite as much.
Oh, okay.
So like one
It
of
wouldn't
the
be like a wine yeast.
kind of, yeah, except wine yeasts are a little more kind of controlled. Like you'd use like even like champagne yeast, like a brut and stuff like that. One of the big famous sour yeast strains is Brettanomyces. It's literally just bacteria that eat sugar, excretes ethanol, and that's where you get your alcohol from.
Yeah.
With sours, oftentimes breweries that will do sours will they'll ferment their sours away from everything else because you can get a bacterial infection if it's like too open or too close.
It'll like travel.
It does, yeah, it travels. So, and that's why you get like that weird funkiness out of it. So it's and the fruity ones are easier to drink. It's a really nice intro into sour beers. I didn't like sour beers initially.
Yeah.
Now I love them.
Yeah.
So
I had like I know with whiskey, I'm not a big like sour mash fan.
Sure.
But I like sour beer.
For sure. And when it comes to whiskey, I'm usually I like the peated scotches out of actual Scotland is what I tend to go for. And I like some bourbons too, like Buffalo Trace.
Oh, Buffalo
like
Trace, yeah. I'm all about the Four Roses.
Yeah, Four Roses is good. I like Four Roses for sure.
We went over, like before Christmas, we went to New Orleans, and on the way we stopped and did a tour and of Four Roses, and I want to go back and do the entire like Kentucky Bourbon Trail. I think that'd be fun.
Yeah, we were talking about wanting to do that eventually too, because we go down to Louisville for every once in a while I'll go for a giant computer LAN war, and everybody brings their computers, play video games, and go to breweries and stuff like that. So it's pretty fun.
And you get, I mean, they're relatively cheap. Like we went for Four Roses tour, it was like $10, and you get like a glass and like a bourbon glass, and it's nice.
Yeah, we were down there, and they had like Ohio craft beers at breweries, and like to get a pint of a craft, like a Great Lakes even, was like $8 or $9.
Yeah.
And it's like, you don't really think about that because, you know, living up in Ohio, it's so readily available. You're paying $4 or $5. So we flipped the menu and found out that they had bourbon flights for $13, so we did that instead.
And the more I found out about at least whiskey, is people come to Ohio to like buy certain types of whiskey because it's somehow more available here, like Weller.
Yeah, I think it's because of, you know, how obviously close we are to Kentucky.
Yeah.
And, like, you know, I had a lot of friends who lived in Cincinnati and were close enough to the border that they would shoot down to Kentucky because of different... You couldn't buy alcohol at a certain point in time of the day, and it was different in Kentucky, so they go over the border and pick it up from there and just drive home.
Yeah.
20-minute drive, so...
Yeah. I've noticed that breweries have been popping up around Ohio, so what's your thoughts on, like, the state of breweries in Ohio?
I do this thing every year called the Summit Brew Path, and it's kind of like the immediate area. There's some wonderful breweries on there. The thing is you know, it comes to, like, there probably, I would say there's maybe a little bit of oversaturation, just because, like, the craft beer industry, before it got really heavily affected by this whole COVID stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, one was popping up every month. I mean, just in, you know, Summit County, there's probably at least 10 if I had to guess. I mean, even here in Canton, you know, we've got Royal Docks, Muscalong Brewing Company, Canton Brewing Company. I have a Fatheads here. And it's kind of cool because, like, you know, all these different breweries will do different specials. Like, they'll do their version of a Christmas ale. They'll do their pumpkin ales. And then you get, like, a lot of the places are brew pubs, too. So you get that opportunity to be able to try their food, and the really fancy ones.
Yeah.
They'll pair the beer with their foods, which is kind of neat. The Summit Brew Path's cool. I mean, this year I think it's 25 different breweries that you can go to. And a lot of them are really, like, there's a lot up in the valley that are really close together. So it's good. I mean, it brought a lot of jobs to Ohio.
Yeah.
And I know that as far as, like, I don't have an exact number, of course, but I know that Ohio specifically is one of the higher states that are having more breweries than typically other places. Like Michigan's a big one, Colorado's a big one, stuff like that. And we're actually up there too.
That's cool.
Yeah, that's neat. Like Royal Docks, for instance, what was it, 2018 or 2019? They were like the 6th largest expanding brewery in America.
Yeah, because they just bought a new building.
Yeah, they have 3 locations now, I believe.
Yeah.
Maybe they might be working on a 4th. John does good work there. If you've never been to, have you been to Royal Docks?
Oh, yeah.
Their food's bomb. Their food's really great. Their flatbread breads are really awesome. They do some interesting, more older style of beers, like mild ales that you would find in Europe and stuff like that. As
Yeah, because that's their kind of story, is that they were backpacking around Europe and they wanted to take that kind of influence and bring it back.
They're Romanian, and they kind of did mostly like a loose interpretation of like a British pub.
Yeah,
it's kind of where they went. Like you can find the cool phone booth in there and everything.
I think
too.
It's cool.
And the location's lovely. Like it's got a really nice fire pit outside, and yeah, it's great. Really accessible. accessible, open. It's nice. I really like drinking there, and the people that work there are really great.
Yeah. After crazy days at Starbucks, I would walk over there and hang out with my boy Ethan. I talk about Ethan on every video somehow.
Have to meet him.
You never met Ethan? Oh man.
I don't know if I know Ethan.
You gotta meet. He's a funny guy.
Yeah.
You guys will get along.
I say most of our interactions were when I was working at Tivana. So.
Yep. I asked you before you came, like, what kind of podcast you're into, and you said you weren't into podcasts as much. Because I try to, like, highlight, and this has actually become kind of like a podcast, like, news show. Like, especially last week, I was talking. There was so much, like, Joe Rogan and Spotify deal. Have you heard about that?
Yeah, the people are mad that he became corporate and sold out now. So
I think he finessed the game, because it's hard to keep like the creative control over it without, by going exclusive, and he was somehow able to do that. So I think it's a boss move.
I mean, I think Joe Rogan's very interesting. Like, all the conspiracy theories and stuff that his guests and stuff have on. Like, who was the big one? That you talked about him in your first video. He's Alex Jones. How controversial he is.
Yeah,
and it's really kind of scary because, like, that dude is definitely on another level of thought process, and I'm not saying that's a good or bad thing, but some of the things that he talks about that could come true, you see some of those things actually happening. You're like, does this guy actually get it, or is he lucky, or what's going on here? It's like a weird, crazy Nostradamus kind of situation. Yeah. So
I don't agree with everything he says, but I like the question, like when he has people on, the questions that he asks them are usually pretty, like, he's not, like, trying to hold back, because he has no reason to, like, hold back, or there's no topic that he doesn't want to talk about, and so.
I think, though, it's really funny, because, like, I think that Joe Rogan does get a little overlooked because of the content that is on there, but I think it's a really good discussion for him, because he seems relatively unbiased. He doesn't really seem like he does it to, put anybody on blast or anything like that. It's mostly just kind of like interviews that are really strange and get kind of entertaining, so.
You can talk about, it could go any direction.
For sure, yeah.
He'll probably talk about elk.
Yeah, and MMA and stuff like that, and libertarianism, all kinds of good stuff.
Yeah. But you said you are a big fan of a couple different YouTube channels, so I thought we could watch a couple of them and react to them, and
sure.
If it works, I'll put it in. If not,
well, then we can just talk about it. Or we can throw some links down. Who knows? Whatever.
One of your favorites, and actually my favorite too, is
the Try Channel.
The Try Channel, and it's basically Irish people trying different things. I'm Irish, so I love it. Are you?
I'm German.
You're German.
Yeah,
okay,
mostly German
right.
and Italian. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's
the
fun.
haircut.
Yeah. But yeah, I love. I've watched this channel before, so we can pull up a couple different videos. Let me see here. I love this guy.
Yeah, leather jacket guy is hilarious. He gets a little hard to understand sometimes, just because, like, obviously accents and stuff like that.
Yeah.
He cracks me up.
He is.
And, like, these two, the dynamic between these two on here are just
ridiculous.
They're like, everybody's friends.
Yeah.
So yeah, you sir.
All right, so this one is Irish people try world's strongest absinthe. Have you had much experience with absinthe?
Yeah, so I like absinthe. You can actually, there's a couple places where you can pick up some bottles of absinthe. I really wish I would have actually got the website for you. I'll have to show it to you later, because I'm going to order the big fancy fountain where you can do the drip and everything.
And the sugar cube.
Yep. There is a little bit of misinformation, at least modern day absinthe. Everybody says, if you drink absinthe, you're going to hallucinate and stuff like that. Which, that did happen. The reason being why is there was a specific fungus that would grow on wormwood. And if you consume that, supposedly it could mess with, like, your brain and possibly, like, eat holes in it and stuff like that, I guess. Don't quote me, I'm not 100% on that. But now modern day absinthe, like, people say, it doesn't have wormwood in it. It still has wormwood. It's just now properly treated.
Yeah, it's not. It's not left to
rot and get gross. Yeah, but I like absinthe. I do like black licorice. A lot of American absinthe that you can pick up, especially local to us, maybe caps out at like 60 proof. So I mean, it'll certainly get you intoxicated.
Yeah.
But
you won't be seeing, like,
no green fairy
visions and weird stuff going on. So.
Yeah, unless you're mixing it with weird stuff, I think you'll be all right.
Yeah. So these guys are trying high proof absinthe, 80 to 160 proof, which is pretty. That's pretty.
Yeah,
I don't know what other alcohol is. Like 151 maybe?
Yeah, 151 proof, that's probably like the highest I've gone. I've had some high gravity beers, but as far as like alcohol goes, I think 151. No, I like taste, so I don't know. I want to be able to breathe after I'm drinking what I'm drinking.
I don't know why Everclear's a product.
If somebody gave it to me and said, "Hey, try this," I'd try it because I feel like I'd have to. But yeah, not. I don't seek it out.
Yeah. It's a little too crazy. All right, so let's start this bad boy.
Absinthe makes the heart grow fonder. Yes!
I love the jacket guy.
Beautiful.
He's like our character.
Yeah, I think that's kind of his shtick.
We're here to have a nice few casual
Elizabeth
drinks.
Ciara,
Nothing major.
Yeah.
Like
she
once, I believe we're having
is like the strongest.
What is it
Like
now?
she shows
We're gonna drink
no
absinthe.
fear.
response. Like
Casual Monday.
everybody's like,
Have you
"Did
ever
you
had
even get
absinthe?
drunk?"
No, really.
Her faces
Does
are the
that make
best
sense?
lolsies.
Yeah.
You never have a good
I like how his name is just
sex
Leather
experience
Jacket
on us.
Guy.
I've never met a single person who's gone, I had a great night on absinthe.
I like that bottle.
That's fancy for
Miss-
sure.
Look at that for a sexy bottle.
That's just fancy. That looks like a bottle of olive oil.
Isn't it like a pirate's bag?
Bottle.
Mystico Speciale.
Absinthe elixir vitae. That's elixir of life.
Elixir of life.
I mean, so obviously we're going to feel better after drinking it.
I just want to know one thing.
Go on.
What's the horsepower?
Jesus. I'll give you one guess. So 120 proof.
What?
Yeah.
This is 60%. This is absolutely fine. This is like something you'd get.
In his face, he's like, "What?"
60%. Vodka is like 40%.
Yeah, I know, but this shit goes up to like 90%.
You're starting us with 60. You're starting on me, are you?
Oh, it smells like chewing gum. It's like minty. That's gorge.
Have we glasses? Have we glasses?
Watching them makes me not feel so bad about my ridiculously pale skin. Like, they're even whiter than I am.
But see, I'm not right now because I'm still kind of
Yeah.
sun-baked. I'm peeling pretty bad from last Saturday, so I kind of look like Larry the Lobster from SpongeBob, just, not as jacked.
Yeah, I do say for someone that's tried, 5,000, what was it?
I think I'm at 5,105 now.
Yeah.
Since 2013.
For drinking that many beers, you're in good shape.
It's the metabolism, that's for sure.
Mine's gone downhill a little bit.
I've been trying to eat cleaner too, so
Yeah.
I'm getting rid of a lot of fried foods, and I've been eating a lot less red meat. And I mean, I love vegetables and fruits, and I eat a lot of fish. And chicken and stuff like that. Stuff not fatty. I don't do like fried chicken very often.
Yeah.
Although I did just have some barbecue downstairs,
Yeah.
so that probably won't help.
It's good though. Mission Barbecue.
Yeah.
I like how it says horsepower.
This is
Yeah,
totally
me too.
something you have after you'd have
What kind of
like a
horsepower
nice
we work
meal.
with?
This is going to be in a fucking roulette video now, isn't it? Oh,
I'm gonna have to censor this video.
I wish they were doing the sugar cube.
They're
doing it straight up.
Yeah, they're just pouring the absinthe into the glass and drinking it,
Hardcore.
which you can do. There's a couple different ways that you can do absinthe. Like, I prefer, I believe, and again, please don't quote me on this, I think it's the French way that I drink it, where you'll do the sugar cubes over it, you pour the absinthe over, and then you, I usually do a 3-to-1 ratio.
Yeah.
So whatever parts I got, it's easy to do a shot glass typically. So a shot of absinthe and 3 shots of water, and then you stir it together until the sugars dissolve. Now, some people will keep the sugar cubes on the spoon and then light the glass on fire to burn off the excess alcohol. I don't particularly care for that because it affects the taste.
Yeah.
And then, obviously it gets rid of some of the alcohol content, which, depending on what you're after. But I usually don't like to get the fire involved in it. I'll do the mix and then drink it from there.
I put the spoon over top, sugar cube, and then pour water over the sugar cube until it dissolves, basically.
Yep.
I don't know, but they're going straight for it.
Yeah, I think because they're just sipping it. They're not doing like full portions.
That's
and this
hardcore.
one's interesting because it's clear.
Oh, yeah. We'll get to some green fairyland.
Oh. Oh!
Love his beard. It's just neck beard.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh, that's like petrol.
oh, it's lovely.
she's like, it's lovely.
Oh, we're about to kill a vampire. Yeah. Whoa. Science need to look into you because how can your taste buds be so different? You don't feel burning.
No. It tastes like...
Yeah, she never
It
reacts
tastes
to
like
anything.
it's clarifying
No,
your
and
mouth.
she
You know,
drinks
if you
like
do a mouthwash
gnarly
with it,
stuff
that's
too,
what it
and
tastes
everybody
like.
on the
I
channel's
quite
like,
liked
ow.
the mintiness, I'm not gonna lie. But Jesus, it burns for an awful long time after you stop drinking it.
The other ones won't drink anything.
Guys, I wouldn't drink milk.
Go back from one.
Is your
We want to
stomach...
wake the day up.
I'm assuming the percentage is only going to go up.
Now we got some green.
Yeah.
70%.
Oh, this
You're
This
expecting.
is what we want. There's that sexy
Yeah.
fairy.
It's gotta be green.
And do you know what I love about this one? The old initials are on the back. Absent. JS. Green. Oh. It's like it was built for me.
And this is what we think of when we think of absinthe.
that
Big
traditional
dirty
green.
petrol green looking thing with a fairy on the front of it.
It's like looking through a pane glass window, isn't it? You know in the churches.
It is a piece of art.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
70%.
Yeah, it's very pretty.
Holy shit, this is even stronger than the last one.
What's that one?
70.
70 horsepower.
140
We're going up. That's the right way.
Oh yeah, alright, I'll give you that one. That was a good one.
I would feel better about it if it was clear, but the green stuff is just like
Yeah, surely the stronger it is, the clearer it gets.
exactly.
It's actually tradition. You know what you do with this?
What?
Have you ever seen what you do with that? You float within it.
No.
No, you do that. You float within it.
You do not.
Okay? That's what you do.
That's not a thing.
Just float, friends.
You're so thick! Why did you do that?
No,
Yeah, he just messes with him all the time. Like makes passes at
I'm
his
trying
mom
to
and
think. It's
stuff.
weird.
It's
When I
like,
think about absinthe, all the memories are hazy, which is kind of makes sense.
I'm just gonna do it. I'm just gonna do it. Devil be damned.
Okay.
What do you think of that, Sean?
Not a bother.
he carries cabbage on him. I don't know. He carries cabbage in his pocket, and he like uses it to garnish his glasses and stuff. And like every single time he pulls it out, whoever he's with is just like
Why?
dumbfounded by like, why are you carrying that? And he never answers them. I don't know if it's like if he has his own separate YouTube channel that he does that with, but it's just he's just
Cabbage.
ridiculous. He's ridiculous.
Oh my gosh. I want to go to Ireland. I think that'd be fun.
I got a friend who went there for her honeymoon, and she loved it, and the pictures were beautiful. So
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of places in Europe I'd like to go.
Everything's green.
Keep her green.
We're
like
Kira.
the Shire.
We're Kira. Let's try and do our best Kiras.
Cheers, good too. Now there's a much heavier burn to that, isn't there?
She tries.
It's fine.
Sure, you might as well be saying, "How was the petrol, Kira?" But you knew it wasn't bad.
Yeah, it's a little bit stronger.
Bring your best friend's mother.
Wait, her name is Sierra, but they call her.
I think it's Kira.
Kira,
so it's
okay.
different pronunciation. So it must be
Kira.
Kira. Yeah.
She just nothing phases her.
No, it's wild.
That is lovely, isn't it?
It kind of leaves a coating on your teeth and mouth.
How does she do that?
Hell yeah.
Is that the future? Could you cancel the present and tell Mr. Morals he won't be needed?
You're losing
Or-
flavour and gaining strength.
Yeah.
That's what's happening there.
And the
Just
guy
a
with the
well
long beard,
best
Brian,
friend.
This
like,
was just
hates
a
everything.
Oh, yeah.
Unless he
Exactly
finds
what
something he really likes, and it's like, oh, you're smiling.
like the absinthe tastes like. Just came up a bit there.
Put this down here.
Now we are sucking the hazel boy.
Ooh.
Yeah, we get in the red, which I've only had
It was
green
gonna be
absinthe,
red.
so
75%. We're going up in the world. We're going up in the world
It
and
says all the
down
same things.
in our corpus mentis.
Do you know Mark Twain said that the best way to cheer yourself up is to cheer someone else up?
Why is
I think
there?
we've just found the solution.
Can we?
We found the fruit.
No.
Oh, this doesn't smell like anything.
Don't make the same mistake here.
She's like, it doesn't smell like anything. The other girl goes,
she's in a lot of the drinking videos, Lulzy, and just the faces she makes, especially with like whiskeys and stuff like
Oh, yeah.
that. Just she looks like she's just being tortured.
my favorite one's the Four Loko one.
Oh, the Four Loko ones, yeah. I've had Four Loko, and
Yeah.
I do not recommend that. It's
Yeah, it's like they mixed an energy drink and alcohol and
well, at one point they had to change it because I'm pretty sure somebody ended up with like major health complications with it. And I've had them, and the fruit punch one was palatable. Don't get me wrong, but like you didn't even like get inebriated at all off of it. You just get a headache.
Yeah.
And it's just like because it's just malt beverage, and just how it's
No good.
made is just it's rough. It's just rough. It had less effect from like tequila and felt fine. And it's just like Four Locos
there's
is
so much sugar.
danger potion.
Danger push. That's what we're working with.
I can do this. I can do this. I'm a think Kira. I'm Kira.
Dropping that, John.
Are you for look at it?
They put so much in there.
Better. This isn't the
There's
shit.
4 other triers out there now, and they're looking at you going, you're nothing but a city splitch. 3, 2, 1, slodge you, sir.
He's a bad influencer.
Sludgety.
Yeah, you gotta feel it in your nose, can't you?
You can.
She's just
Now, right? See that smile that you have on your face? You're like,
I won't shave for a month.
you were literally like I've made a huge mistake.
Okay going in, and now it's just getting worse and worse and worse and worse.
But I think the taste is like also softer. Oh my god, that
If you've had like other than green absinthe, let me know, because I don't know. Maybe that I'll put it on a show.
I'm curious. Yeah, I know that I'll have to give you that website for sure.
Yeah.
But
The reason I did Thirsty Thursdays was that it could be anything.
yeah, that's cool. That's what we. Yeah, that's what I plan on doing
Do
eventually.
some bourbon. I could do beer. I've done mostly beer, but
But it's so accessible.
Yeah.
It's easier to get, and in most situations, beer is not going to be quite as expensive unless you're going for like the really rare stuff, like
Yeah.
Sam Adams Utopia Sale, for instance, which I've had twice. It's $200 a bottle. Yeah, for a 24-ounce bottle.
dang.
Yeah, we split it up between 5 people. It's 28%.
Oh wow.
And it'll.
Holy crap.
Yeah, 5-6 ounces of that on an empty stomach. You don't need anything else. It's good. It's delicious, but whew, it's expensive and it's high.
Oh my gosh. I can imagine.
We can move on to the next one if you want.
Yeah, let's move on to. So this one is Irish people try Missouri craft beers.
It's Missouri, but there's like Missouri, and then Missouri.
I think it's funny too because like they obviously know that they're not pronouncing things right,
Yeah.
and they're like,
This one's so very excited I'm starting off with alcohol. I know. Throwing into the
Donald Jude.
This
guys-
channel
he's
has
very
made
funny.
me appreciate
He cracks up.
beer
I'm so
so
happy.
much more because there are so many more types of beer out there to enjoy.
In advance, I want to apologise just in case. But sure, aren't we all friends here? Have a lovely time drinking Missouri beers.
Missouri beers.
Missouri beers. Abbey Ale.
Yeah, so it's like the
Coke.
Belgian
You know
style.
what?
Yeah,
You're
that-
actually giving us cold beer, which is quite nice.
What's about all the Abbeys?
7.2%.
Hey, I'm not complaining anymore about the Abbeys.
So it's funny to me too because like they're like, ooh, 7%, that's huge. Over here we're kind of like, that's pretty average.
Yeah,
you know?
like, that's
Like
a
what was that?
decent IPA.
Oh, this that sour we started with was 7.5. So
Oh yeah. And then we're gonna go up from there.
I think that's 10.5.
Whew.
And then I think the Umbaugh is 9.5. I want to say.
Oh, buddy boy.
Yeah.
I'm excited about that one. That one got the cherries.
Yeah, that's a cool one too because like as it sits and warms up, it's kind of almost like a wine, and it kind of gets a little more flavor. Like you want to do that with stouts and specific kinds of beers. Like if I ever have anything in my cellar, because I will sit on some things for a little while, like Belgian beers, some Christmas ales depending on what they are, stouts, porters. Like you want to room temp sit those in a dark area, just like you would with a wine, and it kind of will sit. Like there's a couple beers I've had that they're so astringent on the alcohol tone that you want to sit on them for like 6 months to a year. Otherwise, all you get is just straight alcohol taste, depending on the barrel that they're in, like Scotch barrels, bourbon barrels, stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, there we go. Actually, do you want to open this guy up first?
Sure, yeah,
Let's do that.
that's fine. So, Old Nation, they are out of, I believe they're Michigan as well.
Yeah, we
I think I
pulled
said,
there.
yeah, Williamstown, Michigan, it's on here. We recently started getting beers from them approximately, I want to say, in Ohio, at least a year-ish, give or take. New England IPAs are kind of like one of the, I hate to say fad beers, but like we kind of go through different what's everybody drinking kind of stuff. So I guess fad beer would technically be correct. Sours are kind of newer, like a lot of people like sours these days, at least in my experience with, the people I hang out with. Everybody wants that juicy, hazy beer now when it comes to the IPAs, and I agree with them. Hazy IPAs tend to have a little bit more fruity notes to them. This one's a little bit thicker of a one. It's called a double IPA because of the alcohol percentage. I believe this is 10.5%. I think you have to be at least 10% to be considered an imperial or a double. Okay, it's 9.3, so maybe it's 9. I would talk about the hop strains in this, but frankly, when it comes to hops, I don't know much about them. I know, like, I can taste a couple of them, like Citra and Mosaic is in this. Citra is where you get, like, your grapefruit taste, orangey taste. Mosaics tend to be a little bit more bitter and earthy. But I'm no expert on that. That's something that would take me a lot of studying because there's so many different hop strings.
Yeah.
Now, this one says, don't freak out. Sediment and what you can do about it. So there's a couple different ways you can drink this. You could just pour it straight out, leave this,
Leave the sediment.
leave it in. Or you could pour it in, and, some people do like that. Like there's Hoegaarden, if you're familiar with that.
I've heard of that.
Yeah, a lot of Belgian beers will do that. But what this one recommends, like I said earlier,
Roll it.
you put it down and pretend you're making some cookies, I guess. I don't know.
Roll it.
At least you didn't go the Limp Bizkit route.
Yeah.
You want to keep on rolling. You want to roll a little bit and then eventually drink it.
Yeah.
All right, so
I'm not afraid of that sediment.
I don't mind it. Like it depends, because like sometimes if you get an old IPA, Usually, depending on the IPA, the typical IPA, you don't want to keep an IPA for more than 6 months.
Okay.
Because it'll start breaking apart, and you'll see, we call them floaters. It's like dead hops, stuff like that. Unless, you have like a Belgian beer, for instance, that'll be a bottle fermentation where it still has the yeast in it. So as that sits, it can increase the ABV depending on how fresh it is, depending on how long it's been sitting, but it'll change flavor and stuff like that. IPAs, they get funky and you don't want that.
Yeah.
So this isn't the case with this one, so we'll go and give you a pour on here. And you can see that's a lot thicker than, a typical, like if you got a session IPA or something along those lines.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I like the color.
Yeah, it's a nice golden color. Like I said, this one's got definitely some citrusy notes to it, a lot of bitter notes to it. I'm trying to get them as even as possible, so pretty close, I think. Maybe a little less head on that pour, but lines are fairly close. And this will go down on the floor. I will give a plug if you don't care. I did get all these particular beers from Fisher's on Fulton. That's where I used to work. If you're a Canton local in the area, even I know a lot of people would go in there. Yeah. They get a great selection. They have a lot of stuff, and Alex definitely gets the hookup. So I would definitely encourage, if you're looking for a beer, to go there. If you go on a Saturday, there's a good chance you'll see me picking up my own beers. So they do growler fills, and they have like mix of six. That's where I got all these from.
I miss having my bank there, because I used to go when you were working there, I would go in, and you guys have like a little bar set up, and I would taste some, and
yeah, it's cool. Like I think they have, I want to say 12 on tap. They rotate out. I know there for a while they were doing mostly local Ohio breweries to kind of support everything going on with the quarantine. Right now they're not doing tasters, and you can't drink there because of how everything still is. But you can go in and with a growler. Right now you do have to buy their. They might be doing free glass. Don't quote me on that either. Yeah. But they won't fill up people's growlers just because of the spread of bacteria and stuff like that for sure. So.
Gotcha.
All right, sir.
Sweet. Let's check it out.
Prost. Cheers.
Wait, what is it? Slancha.
Slancha, yeah, slancha.
Ooh.
It's a lot. It's almost like smelling like a mild orange juice, right?
It's not like in your face. Like some of them, you're like, whoa, that's a lot of hops.
Yeah, there can be a pungent and very bitter, but this is more. It's almost like a citrusy floral kind of smell. Mm-hmm. It's excellent. They have some good beers.
Wait, too slow. I like that I've been getting more into the IPAs, because like for a while I was like, I'm gonna do all bourbon barrel, like
stouts and stuff,
porters. Like I was like, as dark as you can go. That's what I wanted. And then Ethan kind of got me over to the IPAs, and I would do occasionally at the Oracle. I would do 120 minute.
By Dogfish Head Brewing Company. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're good. Huh?
They were usually on sale, and they were high. Yeah,
they're anywhere between
high content.
14 and 19% is usually where they ranged. And that was one of the first beers Ohio got when they lifted off the ABV cap, because it used to be until, I want to ballpark and say 12 or 13, 2012, 2013, the ABV cap was only 12%.
Oh, wow.
And now there is no ABV cap, because I think the philosophy was, you can have whatever high gravity on beer you want. People will just drink more of a lower one.
Yeah.
So, you're not going to prevent people from getting inebriated. So, but I like to say, for the most part, when it comes to drinking, like, I prefer, sitting around talking. Like, I got a group of buddies. We'll go down to the Oracle on Sunday for beer club, and we'll literally talk about, what we get from it. And we've been doing virtually recently. Yeah. And that's been kind of cool, because, we're all good friends, and we don't get to see each other right now. So we've been doing it online instead. And something like everybody will go, okay, everybody shush, put your thing up to the camera, show us what you're drinking, what do you think of it, you're pairing with anything, stuff like that. So it's been pretty cool.
Yeah. And so you and a friend you're working on a channel. You can talk about that?
Yeah, sure.
When it pops up, I'll put a little link to it.
Yeah, when we get that in front. So me and my friend Rich, he's like my best friend. His name's Rich Huguenot. He is kind of like essentially my little brother. We talk to each other almost every day. We've been a little busy lately, but we haven't been able to get together, obviously. But he plays games with me, computer games, Dungeons and Dragons, stuff like that. We've been friends for years. We used to do this thing like every other Friday. We'd go out and get dinner, and sometimes our friend Trey and sometimes our friend Mike would join us. And then we'd go pick up, we'd each grab 2 beers, which eventually turned into we each grabbed 4 beers. And then we'd go back to my house, and we'd pour them all out. I have a decent amount of glassware at home, so everybody can be drinking out of similar glasses to get the same effect. It does matter. We'd have our 5-10 minutes of being nerdy, and then we'd play video games or board games or card games, like Cards Against Humanity. Just kind of talk about where they're from and talk about the color, the smell, all kinds of stuff like that, what you would do in like your standard beer judging. Eventually, he started posting all the beers that we were drinking on Instagram. And it got to the point to where, like, on social media, like, people were like, oh, that looks really great. What is it? And he'd tag me. He's like, James, go on.
Yeah.
So I make the joke that he's kind of like my beer Padawan.
Yeah.
But he's knowledgeable, too. But, and, I don't know everything, of course. I'm an amateur for sure. We plan on doing a channel that is literally dedicated to talking about alcohol in general, but mostly focused on beer. Basically, we're going to kind of go into some of the science and cultural history, like, for instance, where IPAs come from and why they're called that. And I found a little bit of information on what is believed to be the strongest or the oldest alcohol in the world, and I think that's where we're going to start.
Is that mead?
Rice mead from China.
Okay.
It's 7,000 BC.
Dang.
That's like, wow, people were getting crunk for a long time.
Yeah.
But we found a couple different things, and I think we're going to start there. And my plan is, to go into the history of that, talk about how it's made, and then try to find modern versions of it. And I know there's a couple of Asian markets around here that would probably be a good place to start. When it comes to, like, your traditional Old English Norse mead, I have a hookup for that, a buddy who's doing that, and I got a couple fun ideas.
I've been wanting to try to make mead for the longest time.
I know somebody who makes mead in his basement. I haven't had it yet. He's supposed to give me a bottle, but definitely one of these times we go down to McAlpine, because we go down there and play games. We'll play my Dungeons & Dragons stuff. I'll have to make sure you get an invitation so you can check it out, because he's a nice dude.
Yeah.
And he does private events for me because he's awesome.
Yeah.
But we plan on interviewing him and talking about his product, and I'll see if I can get him to give like a little mini tour of his brewing area, because it's a whole room. It's pretty impressive.
That's sweet.
And they're out of Beach City, and he's a funny, ornery guy who's really fun to hang out with. We have a lot in common.
I met him once. He has a pretty
he wears kilts and stuff. Yeah. He's a very nice guy. He's really great, and he's strange, and that's why I like him.
Yeah.
So.
Well, let's get back. Let's do a little bit more. We'll do like half of this video.
Yeah, sure.
We is getting lit to the tip. Go.
Lit to the tip.
What do you think? It looks good. Well, it looks heavy.
Yeah, it does look heavy.
Ooh, smells nice.
Oh, yeah.
Fun fact about me, actually, I have anosmia, so I don't really have a sense of smell.
Oh man, that would suck.
Let's just do a video on that. Oh my, can you smell this? Can you smell this?
Well, I wonder if that affects your sense of taste.
Michael
Too.
Probably,
Bublé's all over
yeah.
the shop.
That was classy. I would spill or break.
Yeah, that would be
Yeah, it's really strong.
It's very heavy, very hopsy.
It's verging on stout. It's verging on.
Yeah.
Yeah, you get that Guinnessy.
I don't like the beginning, I like the afterbit. The afterbit's really nice.
Just like sex.
Are you a big Guinness fan?
American Guinness. I would drink Guinness back in the day. It's a goal for me definitely to go to Ireland and see what the difference is. Because I had a buddy who was obsessed with Irish car bombs, and the problem that I have with those, it's just like you drink one and you're like, God, I don't even know if I can fit anything else into my stomach. I don't like dry stouts. Typically, that's not my favorite style of stout. I usually go for the bourbon barrel stuff.
Yeah.
I don't do nitros either. Like I just don't like.
I love a good nitro.
I don't like the texture for some reason. No, I've had nitros I like. I'd rather your classic CO2. That way you're getting that full head retention, and it's just the nitro makes them too creamy and smooth for me, and I don't like a whole lot of stuff like that.
Okay.
So
I love the creamy, like I like the Guinness. Like if it's not on tap, I like it in a can.
it's got the pearl
That's
in
got
it.
the pearl on it, and then you just like
You got to pour it right. That's important, because if you don't pour it right, you don't evenly distribute
upside
it.
down.
Yep. I've watched people do this with a can. I'm like, oh.
You're like, no, you don't, no.
Well, I'm kind of rude in a way. Like, I'll watch my friends pour beers. Like, just give me that. Stop it.
Yeah.
It's like, I want you to enjoy it and not make a mess.
Yeah.
That's not to say that I've always poured beers perfectly, and I still don't. But that's like this one right here doesn't really hold a whole lot of the head on it.
Yeah.
There's different glasses. Like I have I believe it's a cider glass, and it's kind of like this bowl glass at top, and it has a twisted like the inside is kind
Yeah.
of like twisted up, and every time you take a sip of it and sit it down, it disturbs the carbonation in it
that's kinda cool.
and brings up the head back. So that's kind of nice because that's where you get your aroma from.
Yeah.
So,
Interesting.
but yeah, not Guinness so much. Eh?
Yeah.
Or the opposite of sex. I don't know. I'm not.
That's the opposite of sex.
Oh, good job in your bit. Where the hell is Missouri? Like, I know it's
Where is Missouri?
New York, Florida, California, Seattle. I'd rather have Florida your beer and have less of it.
It's all
More
Missouri.
of like, what does this go with?
That's how Ohio feels about
It
it.
goes with another beer. That's what it goes with. It's a mid-state.
Okay, so what does that mean?
It's in
It's in the middle.
America.
Okay.
Zwickle.
Yeah.
Wiggle.
Set and feel together.
Wiggle.
Zwickle. Give you a little flick.
It's
Oh, urban chestnut, maybe that's the
Oh, yeah.
There we go. I thought it was like one can is the equivalent of one squirrel because it's a weird shaped can.
One squirrel.
Whoa, did you see the pop that? No, wait. What in the tits? Oh my god, look how cool!
Have you ever had a
Leaving
can
up
like
to
that?
open, you bitch! That's so exciting!
No, I've never
Messy,
personally
isn't
had
it?
one. I believe
It
it's
is
safe
big,
to
yeah.
put it
Not
back
great for
and
drinking
leave
in a
it the
field
fridge.
when you're on your way to the gig.
Well, let's Zwickel.
I think I go over that in this actually.
Yeah, baby!
It's
Smooth
smooth.
flavor.
It's
Yeah.
smooth. If it was a music, it would be smooth jazz.
A bit more zesty,
Way lighter.
isn't it? It's real summery like.
Pleasant. I would enjoy that in a beer garden on a hot day.
Do you know what? If I was going out, apart from the can being completely open and you're going to throw it all over yourself, I'd be more open to taking 6 of them and drinking them in the field than a really heavy beer.
What's the saying? One for you, one. I forgot. I'm gonna drink the beer without any sayings. Or do you want sayings? No sayings? Okay.
Yeah, Dono gets pretty funny. He goes all over the place.
Store crowd.
Citywide.
Citywide American Pale Ale.
4 hands.
So that's gonna be like a
Four
hot
Hands
beer.
Brewing Co.
Toasted ravioli. Oh, sorry.
Ravioli.
Did you think that there was toasted ravioli and a pork steak in this can? Like,
Wait a minute. Did we?
There are
squirrel
beers that
with the
have
last can?
meat in them,
Is that
though.
what it said?
Wait, meat?
Yeah, so
Meat beer?
I don't remember the brand, but there's one that had roasted goat brain in it, and then there was one by Dogfish Head that has scrapple in it. Are you familiar with scrapple?
Nah.
So scrapple is kind of like leftover breakfast meat and oats and maple syrup.
Oh.
So it's like this smoked. I think it's a porter. I'd have to look it up to
Wait,
remember what the beer is, but it has that in the brew.
In the beat, like,
Yeah, I'm gonna be really honest with you.
is it good?
It's great. It's really good.
I'm
It's got
gonna
like
try
this
that.
maple syrupy, bacony taste.
Oh, I
Yeah.
love both those things.
Yeah, I'd have to look up. I think it might be called beer for breakfast. If that sounds like that's right. But man, you know,
Yeah.
5,000 beers. I don't remember them all.
Telling us.
ASMR.
I'm about halfway through.
Oh.
Did I jizz on the table there?
Reminds me of the first craft beers to hit Ireland, where you're like, I'm
What is
smelling
this?
flowers and lemons. What
Yeah.
the hell?
Nice head of it.
Oh my gosh, this is an example of pouring it the wrong way.
They just pour it on himself. Yeah, don't do that.
I prefer the last one. This one has a bit more.
What is your theories on pouring? Or how would you figure out which beer needs what kind of pour?
Well, most beers, like, you know, how I've been lifting it up to the camera and giving it an approximately 45-degree angle. It's like, let's be real here, I'm not going to break out a protractor
Yeah.
to it. I think it has, like, if you pour straight down into the glass, it just hits and then foams up.
And you're led with this much foam.
Yeah, and you
that
have to
much
sit
beer.
and wait for it. Like, people will pour that out, and you don't want to do that either.
I've had bartenders do that where and then you get it and you're like,
Yeah, if where I go, if that happens, like, no.
I'd be like,
I want beer,
no.
please. Yeah.
My favorite thing though is when they like pour it like maybe to here and it runs out and then they're like, it's free, and I'm like,
Yeah, that happens often. That's best day. My favorite flavor of beer is oftentimes free. That's free is a nice spice.
it's true.
But yeah, I mean, you know, we were talking about nitros. You want to pour those vertically, and you know, there's different tap systems set up for nitro beer specifically, which not everybody uses. I think it's neat. It just depends on the beer. Most of the time, like I said, you give it that nice, that tilt to pour it. But it just depends. Like, like with Guinness, you stick the can in, you kind of just slowly go with it. Cask ales, stuff like that aren't carbonated, which you can get, which sounds really strange. Not everybody's used to that, but cask ales are warmer and they're not as carbonated how they go through the
okay.
system. Like stouts are really great for that. Belgians are really great for that. I mean, you can stick the glass underneath it and it won't.
Oh, weird.
Yeah, it usually doesn't foam up. But I mean, yeah, you typically want to pour at an angle just because I'm not a physicist. I mean, it's how it hits the side of the glass and runs down. It's smoother, and it won't foam up as much. That's the most technical, honest answer I can give you. I have no idea why it does that. I'm sure it has to do with something, but definitely an angle.
I know because I cut open one of those bottles of Guinness once and like took out the little marble or pearl. I think.
It's like a glass pearl. It's used to.
Yeah, it's either glass or like a plastic, and it has like a hole in it that kind of helps aerate as you pour. So
exactly,
yeah,
they're neat. It's definitely a smart packaging, especially if you want to do your best to emulate actually getting it on tap as a nitro. Yeah. It's not going to be perfect, but it works pretty well, I think. My
favorite, I think, like, I guess, I don't know, is Kentucky Bourbon, is that a nitro?
Kentucky Bourbon Barrel Ale is just going to be your aged, like their standard ale is just a regular ale. When you bourbon barrel or barrel something, it's literally you brew the beer and then you just let it sit in that barrel for so long. So it'll keep its carbonation because of the alcohol content and stuff like that. Nitro literally has, instead of it being run through a system with carbon dioxide, it's nitrogen.
Oh, okay.
So that gives it like that different pour. That's why if you ever like when you pour the Guinness and you have those like almost looks like a little waterfall kind of
cascading on the
it's real pretty to do. I mean, it's a nice aesthetic for sure. So, but yeah, like a bourbon barrel beer is. I mean, this is a bourbon barrel beer right here that we're doing next, and that it's just essentially an aged ale. It's the same thing as doing anything else. So
this is another channel that you like. What's the name of it?
It's called Top 5 Scary Videos, where they'll do this list of 5 different things. Some of the cool things that they do because I'm a huge horror fan. I love horror movies. I wish I read a little bit more for horror novels because, watching Stephen King's It versus reading Stephen King's It is a totally different experience, of course. And they'll do like top 5 Stephen King monsters, or they'll do top 5 forgotten horror movies that like stuff that should have gotten more knowledge. 5 horror movies that got torn apart by the critics. 5 urban legends. They go into some religious stuff like the top 5 demons and things like that are mentioned in the Bible and stuff like that. So it's just everything horror that you can think of. Like the creature features of like the Alien movie or Jason Voorhees from the Friday the 13th movies. It's just a lot of just horror content, sci-fi horror comedy, paranormal horror, and then things that are supposedly real and stuff like that. So it's entertaining and informative and sometimes disturbing because you're like, well, that actually is based off of stuff that's terrifying. So
it's a great thing to watch before bed.
Yeah, that's what Ellie and I do. My girlfriend, we watch a lot of these top 5 horror videos right before bed.
Yep.
And it's funny because like she does every once in a while. She'll get nightmares, and I don't really get nightmares that much. I just usually have really kind of like surreal, strange dreams.
Yeah.
Because I'm a surreal, strange person. So.
All right. So this one is top 5 scary jump scares in horror movies.
Mm-hmm. And starts off with this parody.
Oh my God! Stop to scare you! I was under the desk.
Oh wait, no.
To come
Who
up
is
on
that?
this side.
Yeah, if only the actual It movie was.
Was that James?
I don't know. I think that was a British actor actually.
James, the guy that does the carpool karaoke.
I don't know if that's the same guy or not. I think that was like a British sketch comedy. But the whole joke on it is it's It. Yeah. He's the IT guy, so, which is what I do. I don't dress up like a clown.
Have you ever seen the show The IT Crowd?
I've seen a few episodes, with Noel Fielding in it. He's one of my favorite British comedians, especially from the Mighty Boosh. Yeah. Good stuff. I definitely need to go through all of. I have this humongous list of all these things I need to watch, and there's just so much good entertainment out right now. It's hard. It's real hard.
Yeah. All right, let's get into it.
Was funny and starred James Corden. That would be
great.
Yeah, we will be talking about the actual It film further down on the list, so make sure you stay tuned for that. Hey guys, I'm Court McGinley and welcome back to Most Amazing Top 5. Before jumping into this list, I want to remind you to show some love by giving this video a big thumbs up and subscribing to our channel if you haven't already. We bring you guys awesome top 5 lists, so make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out on all the fun. Alright, let's get started on our list of the top 5 scary jump scares in horror movies. Starting off on our number 5 spot, Annabelle. A movie about a possessed doll.
I haven't seen any of those.
Yes, that's always a fun one. This movie came out in 2014 and it was a hit. Yeah, going into this movie, you knew what you were getting yourself into. But like all good horror movies, it does have those jump scares that catch you off guard, like this one.
Yeah, that would get me for sure.
Watching that on its own, yes, it's a little cheesy, but I swear it was creepy when you watched it happening in the movie. And it does take you by surprise.
That's the thing I like about
and let me
jump
tell
scares,
you,
they build all
this
this
isn't
tension before that happens. Like, if you just got something that just appears and there's no lead up, I mean, I think that would just lead to confusion.
Yeah.
Whereas you've got, like, this tense, like, build up, like that scene right there with the little girl who starts running, and, you know, you have to have some kind of build up, or else I don't really think it's...
Yeah. I think when it comes to jump scares, like, there are movies that do it well, and then there's movies like, I think some of the ones in like the Conjuring series, I think there were some that were done well, but some of them were a little cheesy that like kind of popped up, and like I could anticipate them. And that's the cool thing about jump scares is like a good jump scare is like something you don't anticipate.
Right.
And, like actually one of my favorite movies for jump scares was Shaun of the Dead.
No, that movie is so good.
And it's so funny because they get you with the jump scares like when something's not even scary.
Right.
And like they do it so well that like even like somebody like knocking on the door, you're like, holy crap, like and then they carry that, you know, they go from like when Sean is just living his normal life, you still get those jump scares, and then the payoff is later on in the movie when there's actually something to be scared of, and it still works. Like,
yeah, it was almost like a form of dramatic foreshadowing. Yeah. So.
Yeah. I mean,
yeah, I agree with that for sure.
Yeah, Shaun of the Dead, that's a great movie.
That's I think the best horror comedy movie ever made. You got red on you.
Yeah, you got red on you.
And then the Winchester, that's the Oracle for us.
We'll let this thing blow over.
like the other possessed doll killing spree movies out there, like Child's Play or Chucky. Yeah, they actually took their time to make this one really scary. And what's even creepier is that this Annabelle doll is actually real. Yes, there's a real possessed doll out there. It was deemed possessed by renowned demonologists Ed and Lorraine Warren. The doll is currently at the Warrens Museum in Connecticut, and it is locked in a glass box in a room with other haunted or possessed items that no one is allowed to enter. And the movie...
You don't want... we went to New Orleans, and we went to this place called the Museum of Death.
Okay,
and I wasn't a big fan. I think it's overpriced. It was like $60.
Really?
Yeah, or something like around there. And I was like, and like you can walk around. There's like stuff about serial killers, and at the back there's like this weird movie of like people actually like getting shot and stuff. Like it was real weird. It was like a snuff film kind of. And you're like, I don't know about this.
I don't know about all that.
But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, death is obviously something that humanity thinks about a lot.
Yeah.
But something like that, like, I don't know. I think that there's a classy way to talk about it, and that doesn't seem like that was a way.
Yeah, every time
I've never been, so no smack talk. So.
Yeah, and then the couple, the Warrens, they like. Whenever I watch the movie, I'm always like, why did you put all those evil objects in one place? That's not a good thing.
It's really interesting to me because they were like, actual legitimate or illegitimate, depending on your perspective and beliefs, demonologists who would do exorcisms and stuff like that. And,
they definitely were involved in some top, like, paranormal cases.
Like the Amityville Horror is based on one of their cases, and The Conjuring and stuff like that. And it's really weird because it's kind of like one of those things, like, how do you reconcile... is this something that actually happened? Is this something that, was like a hoax or whatever?
Yeah.
But, I don't know. I didn't know if you wanted to maybe talk about this off of that site since you used that earlier for the gyroscope too. If there's a good description or not, I'm not really sure.
Oh, for this one? So yeah, the Bossweed was a double New England IPA with aroma of peach, mango, and tangerine. I didn't really think about mango, but now that I can kind of taste, like I can smell it more than I taste it,
I think like the peach and mango certainly is because of the sweetness in it, at least. But I mean, it's so wild to me that you can get all these fruity flavors without actually having fruit in it, and it's really weird how that works.
Yeah.
Which I think is awesome. I think it's neat. So.
Yeah, it's kind of cool, like especially like when you compare like coffee, bourbon, beer, like you can. I mean, some beer is brewed with other things.
Oh yeah, like that sour that we did had a bunch of raspberries in it. So,
but you can taste those distinctive like flavors without ever adding those to the brew itself.
Right. And one of the cool things I've been doing with people, like especially friends who are just getting into craft beer, like for instance, my girlfriend is more of she likes liquor, she likes mixed drinks and stuff like that, which I like a nice fruity mixed drink too. I've been kind of like. I'll have her try them first, And then I'll kind of be like, okay, what did you get out of it? And I was like, okay, now take another sip, and I want you to think about this. So I did this with her recently, and she's like, no, I absolutely see what you mean. And it's one of those things where, like, the more you get into it, the more of a palate that you kind of build, and you kind of start to pull it apart and kind of understand how the flavors are supposed to be. Poor Brick. He wants to come up here and drink some beer, I think. Yeah. But, yeah, it's just neat. Like, there's just so much you can do, and, like, that's why I like craft beer so much in comparison to, like, your typical... kind of like standards. Yeah. No names necessary. Not gonna be that guy.
Actually, I like this question. When it comes to, if you go into a bar, just you're like hanging out with like family or something. Yeah. And they don't have a big craft beer selection. What are your go-tos?
I really like Killian's Irish Red quite a bit.
Dude, that was actually my first one was a German beer, but my second beer was a Killian's, and so like that was kind of like my favorite. Like staple beer.
See, one of the cool things is like there's a handful of beers I'll say that's a steak beer, and when I say that's a beer that I would feel comfortable drinking while eating a steak. Yeah. Now there's a little bit of a misnomer in Killian's. Killian's is not an import. It's an American made beer. But it's more of the style that they're going after. I've been to many cookouts where like the family will have what they drink, and then somebody like, hey, I brought some Killian's. Is like, you're my best friend. Yeah. I really love Blue Moon. I think Blue Moon is a solid.
I like it in the winter. It's a good winter.
And with a slice of orange, it's like everybody's like, oh, that's stupid. No, it's nice. It's really nice with a slice of orange. If I'm doing like downtown crawls to places that don't have a lot, I'll drink a nice cold PBR every once in a while. There's something about a classic old school adjunct style. I believe it's a Pilsner. I believe it's cool and refreshing on a hot day. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with like craft beer drinking. Like a nerd like me, I don't even want to think about how much money I've spent on those 5,000 beers. Like, there's been times where I've gone to an event and walked away with $350 of beer. Yeah. And it's just like I look at it, I was like, I know I'm going to enjoy this, but what am I doing? But those are times where it's like, I'll share them with my friends, and we'll, somebody will bring one some week and stuff like that. So I'm trying to think of some other go-tos that I
like Yingling. Yingling's a good, like...
I like their black and tan, actually, quite a bit. Their black and tan's nice. Their standard lager's not bad. I tend to stray away from light beer just because I like a full flavor, typically. Nothing against, drinking that kind of stuff, I have no problem with that. Trying to think of what else that would really be a good go-to, like, non-craft beer. Sam Adams, I still consider them a craft brewery because of how much they make and how much love they put into it.
What variety they have.
But Boston Lager's solid. And it's a standard, old-school, like... it's just like a lot of Great Lakes, like Dortmunders and stuff like that, like the standard craft beers that were before craft beers. Yeah. And like that's like, you've got your domestics, you've got your craft beer, and then there's kind of like this little gray area. That's where I would put like some of Great Lakes, Sam Adams, even Yingling, for instance, because, Yingling is considered one of the oldest breweries in America. Mm-hmm. And the way that they make their beer is just, a little different than the complete macro breweries of, say, like Anheuser-Busch and stuff like that. So.
That's cool. Mm-hmm. Nice.
The movie did make the doll look much creepier than it actually is. The real Annabelle doll is a Raggedy Ann doll, but I guess for the movie they wanted to up the creep factor, so they turned her into a porcelain doll. Because, let's be honest, the audience wouldn't be scared of a Raggedy Ann doll. And at number 4, The Blair Witch Project. This movie came out in 1999.
I watched that really young.
This is an amazing horror movie.
They just made a video game. That one gets coming out on Steam.
It literally makes me feel sick. But I do know that this is considered one of the scariest jump scenes in the film.
But yeah, that movie freaked me out. My grandma watched that with me.
Yeah. Found footage films are like
a lot of quick camera motions
whole different kind of beast.
Yeah, I like Paranormal Activity.
Oh yeah, okay. I heard the first one was great.
The first one was great because I went to the theater and I didn't know anything about it, and like it was packed, and like we were watching it, and like when you first watch it, like now watching it, I'm like I know where all the jump scares are. Mm-hmm. But like when I first watched it, knowing nothing about it, scariest movie, like you just don't know what to expect, and you're like forced to watch like them fast forwarding through like a night scene or something like that, and you're just like something is gonna happen, and dude, I think that's how to execute jump scares.
Yeah, I agree
for sure.
Yeah.
But
So my scary movie stuff that I like more psychological, supernatural stuff. Like, my favorite scary movie series is Hellraiser.
Oh, yeah.
And those movies, like, man, and some, like, the first few were really great, and then after that...
They get a little corny.
Well, they're kind of corny already. Yeah. Horror movies, like, I think horror movies have to have, at least in some regard, just a little bit of corniness.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it makes it more watchable, if that makes sense. Because, like, there's horror movies out there that you couldn't pay me to watch because they're too grotesque and too real and stuff like that. Like, there's a movie called Cannibal Holocaust that almost was banned in multiple countries because they thought it was real and stuff like that. It's like, there's a point, there's a line definitely where I'm like, oh, yeah, I'm cool.
Yeah.
But, like, stuff like, Paranormal Activity, I love the Friday the 13th movies, and just because those movies are like cheese incarnate.
Yeah.
Like, they're so cheesy, but they're so good.
Yeah.
They're so good.
Let's see what else they got on here.
Nowhere. The hype around this movie was there, though, as it brought in $240 million gross with a $22,000 budget. But like me, the documentary freehand camera style format made a lot of people nauseous. People were puking in the aisles, the bathrooms, and even in the lobby. Those poor theater cleaners. There were actually theater workers in a theater in Atlanta that were specifically put on puke patrol for the opening weekend of this film. And at a theater in Cambridge, they actually had their theater manager announce before the movie that if people needed to vomit, if they could please vomit outside the theater. Yeah, it was bad. At number 3, The Conjuring. This movie came out in 2013, and I have to say it's definitely one of my favorite horror movies.
Yeah, I heard out of,
it just has
all those
so
series,
many
the first
scary
one was the
elements.
best.
This was such an amazing horror movie, and it got such amazing audience feedback that it was actually developed into a series. From this, we got The Conjuring 1 and 2, and the third one is coming out next summer. Annabelle Creation, The Nun, The Crooked Man, and The Nurse. But yes, the first Conjuring movie was the one that set off the series, and of course it had a lot of jump scares. There are actually 2 that I feel need to be mentioned because they were both terrifying. Seeing this movie on the big screen probably wasn't the best idea. First off, we have the scene that no one saw coming, unless you saw the trailer beforehand, because they made the stupid decision of showing one of the best jump scares in the trailer. I'm talking about this one. I know seeing it there, you're probably like, what the heck was that? That wasn't scary. Well, that's because it was just a 4-second clip. Trust me, tied into the movie, it's creepy. Next up is the dressing scene. Now, this was probably one of the scariest scenes in the whole movie, but again, on its own, it's not so bad. If you like horror movies and haven't seen this one, it's definitely worth watching. Coming in at number 2, Insidious. Another terrifying movie, but this is a list about horror movies, so yeah, there you go. This movie is basically one of those movies where you are sitting on the edge of your seat the whole time. But there's one jump scare scene that makes you literally jump to the back of your seat, and that's this one.
Yeah, it definitely looks like Darth Maul.
This guy goes by many names. Lipstick Face Demon, Face of Fire, but he is mostly referred to as the Red Face Demon. And when he pops up on that screen, you just don't see it coming. This guy haunts people and controls the Dark Realm, which is referred to as the Further. Yeah, definitely not a fan of this character. Before we reveal our number ones, alright, and in at number 1, It. This movie remake came out in 2017, and man, did it ever have a lot of jump scares. But the one I'm about to mention really stood out. And I do have to say, they did use the jump scares in a smart way. For example, we have the scene where Bev is trying to leave her house, but her father's locked her in. He then creepily asks her if she's been doing womanly things with a group of boys she's been hanging out with. Then they get into an altercation, and he pushes her to the ground and climbs on top of her. Yeah, pretty sure this was supposed to represent the fact that he was having an inappropriate relationship with her. So obviously she freaks out, and she kicks him in the balls and runs to the bathroom and locks the door. Her dad kicks the bathroom door in, but then she knocks him out with the top of the toilet bowl. As if all of that wasn't enough, this happens. I have to say they did a great job with this jump scare because something very crucial just happened, so you weren't expecting this at all. I remember I saw this movie in theaters, and this definitely made everyone in the audience either gasp or scream. Alright, and it's that time of the video where
the cool thing I like about Pennywise is, like, he's supposed to be an embodiment of what you fear. Yeah. And, I don't know, like, are you familiar with a lot of Stephen King stuff?
Well, some of it, I haven't gotten into it, though. That's the one movie that I've been meaning to, like, get it, like, watch, and especially, like, the older one, and...
Yeah, with what was his name? He was the guy who was in Rocky Horror Pictures. Tim Curry.
Yeah.
He played Pennywise the Dancing Clown. So all of the Stephen King movies are supposedly in the same universe. Like they're all connected at some point. And there's some stuff like I've been really wanting to read The Dark Tower, but man, that is an undergoing. 'Cause it's huge.
Yeah, he writes giant. Like even
it's. Like I said, I need to read more for sure. Like I'm going through a lot of H.P. Lovecraft right now, which is written in a different time, and there's some things that H.P. Lovecraft believed in that I really don't like.
Yeah.
But he's considered the grandfather of horror novels, like Stephen King. Have you ever seen the movie The Mist?
Yeah.
That's based off of Lovecraft. A lot of horror guys are based off of Lovecraft.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I mean, his
The
whole
Mist
universe.
has one of the most frustrating endings in the world.
I loved it.
Where you're just like.
It's just heart-wrenching, no spoilers.
Yeah.
But watch The Mist.
Yeah.
You're going to sit at the end and just kind of like... And you're going to feel horrible about watching this movie.
Oh, man. It is rough. Let's get into the last beer.
All right.
And then we'll kind of watch a couple other ones.
Now, I'm not 100% sure who the three philosophers here on the can are supposed to be. I'll give you another little image again. I would assume Lao Tzu... Socrates, and the other guy, I mean, it almost kind of looks like some philosophers here on the end.
He looks almost like more modern, I guess.
Yeah, like a European. I mean, that's not Nietzsche, so I don't know. Like, I'm not 100%, but let's see if there's a little blurb. Who's the three philosophers on Three Philosophers? While he's doing that, this is a bourbon barrel aged quad ale, which is a Belgian-style beer. This is, like I said, out of New York. There's a lot of misnomers about how the three Belgian beers, there's doubles, triples, and quadruples, how they got named. For instance, they thought that's how many times they were fermented. Well, you can't redo that typically. You typically don't re-ferment beer because then it gets weird. There's too much yeast.
Yeah.
You probably could. There's probably things out there exist. Like I said, I'm not a professional. But typically what it meant was the usually ABV. Does it say that's 12.3%?
I think so, yep.
Is that right? 9.5.
Oh, 9.5. Is that the... Huh. Maybe this website got it wrong.
Well, it could be that it's user done, like wiki.
Oh, yeah. Probably.
And I mean, that could be, they might have variants that are that. I don't know. There's so much going on that... Does it say anything about who it is?
ABV varies by batch.
Okay, that makes more sense. Yeah. So this is a Belgian quad, typically from Belgian quads. This is my favorite style of Belgian beer. You get stone fruit notes, like you get like fig and plum and raisin and stuff like this. This one happens to be bourbon barrel aged because when I stopped at Fisher's, I didn't want to run around and get go to a bunch of different places. The standard Three Philosophers is one of my very favorite beers of all time.
Yeah.
It was what really got me kind of hooked on the style. My first craft beer was at Fiddlesticks. Oh. It was Leinen Kugelberry Weiss on draft, and then I moved on. I started drinking imports. Like I was drinking Franziskaner Hefeweizen from Germany, Affligem, which is another Belgian triple ale, and then I found this pretty beer, and just fell in love with that style. Yeah. Belgian yeasts usually use a very specific yeast strand that I wouldn't know what it is, but if you've ever had like a triple, like it has that banana clovey tone to it. Mm-hmm. But this one's got a really nice coppery, kind of darker color to it. And one thing to keep in mind about Belgian beers is, as you can see as I'm pouring this, I'm going to set it down. We'll kind of do this. It's got a little bit thicker of a head. That is what you want. Mm-hmm. That's actually a good thing. I've heard that you want at least 3 inches of head on your Belgian beers. You get those a little bit more from triples, like the triples, the doubles, and quadruples kind of have their own flavor palettes too. And as you go up in the multipliers, they tend to have a higher ABV. Typically, not all the time. Typically. Yeah. Like with your doubles, you get you kind of get like a nuttiness, almost like a caramely nuttiness. Triples usually end up having like a banana clove type tone, and then with the quadruples, you get that stone fruit and a little bit more on the boozy notes.
Yeah.
So.
All right, slaughtered. Ooh.
And you can smell the barrel in that.
Oh
one, right?
yeah, that's the first thing I smelled was like a little bourbon barrel.
Well, I like these because they're very like. I think like for like let's say that you were just a wine drinker and you tried this.
Yeah.
I think this would be something for someone who likes wine but doesn't typically like beer. I think this would be something that even they'd be like, I appreciate this. Even if they didn't like it, they could see similarities.
Bit of a crossover kind of.
For sure.
That's fun.
This is a great, like one of my honest to God go-tos. I love this beer. This beer is solid. It's so good. Well, it's liquid, but you get the point.
Liquid gold. Let's try it out.
Oh yeah. It's rich, right?
I love how like it's like got that full body taste, like pretty much like your whole mouth is coated, and you can kind of like distinguish that cherry that we were talking about. Or so this one had.
Yeah, let me bring that back up. This is actually I forgot to mention that. That's my fault. This is actually also so it says a blend of quadruple ale, which is what I just went into for the standard beers. And it's a Belgian Kriek ale with cherries. So if you get like a Kriek, it's Kriek. That is typically a Belgian style cherry beer, and they usually end up being, cherries are a tart fruit. I wouldn't necessarily go as far as they're going to be sour, but they're more like that kind of like tartiness that you get from a cherry. And you can get some really wonderful imported Kriek ales. I know that there's one. It's like Three Fontaines is a Belgian beer, and I believe they have a Kriek, and it looks nothing like this. All this color is from the quad.
Yeah.
But Krieks are usually a little bit more lighter in color, and like if you've ever had, it's technically it's not technically, it's a framboise. It's Lindemann's framboise. Have you ever had that?
I don't think so.
I would highly recommend. Like maybe one of these days we'll have to get together and I'll have you pick out some beers for some of your stuff. The cherry note to that, like the just adds like this kind of like effervescence and like this back end taste. Like I really feel like after you take a nice sip of that, the cherry is what lingers the most, like especially in the back of your tongue. So it just gives it this nice fragrance and this like uplifting of fruitiness, because otherwise it's mostly fig, plum, and then that yeast strain.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a great beer. I love this beer. One of my favorites, hands down. And they have other variants too. They have a wine barrel aged version, for instance, that gives it a little bit more of like a funkiness to it.
Yeah.
The regular version's just solid and standard. So that's the fun thing about beer is like whatever you barrel it in, you're gonna give it that extra kick.
Yeah.
Like I've had a lot of stouts that were like in tequila barrels, or rum barrels and stuff like that.
Ooh, the rum would be good.
I know one that I can recommend for you. So we'll definitely have to get together like outside of me doing this with you, and we'll go look at some good beers for sure.
Let's do it. So let's watch some 5 Scariest Lovecraft monsters. So Lovecraft, I don't know much about. Is that a...
Howard Phillips Lovecraft was a horror novelist, and he was mostly popular in the 20s and early 30s. He had some very, very bad views on, well, let's just not beat around the bush. He was a racist, essentially. He was a xenophobe. But a lot of people believe that stemmed from him not liking where he came from. So there's a lot of psychological stuff about H.P. Lovecraft. Of course, his most famous work that he's ever made, and like, you ask a horror fan, is The Call of Cthulhu, which essentially he made this pantheon of these horrific alien gods and goddesses and creatures and stuff like that. And the most famous one, Cthulhu, like he's like...
He's become kind of like a meme.
Yeah, he's just like, a lot of people know what Cthulhu is. I mean, he was on South Park and stuff like that. And he's featured on a lot of video games. He's essentially a giant... He's described as looking like a human with dragon wings and an octopus for a head is the easiest way to describe it.
Yeah.
But he sleeps at the bottom of the ocean until the stars are in a specific arrangement, and then he wakens and rampages the earth and destroys it until the stars move and he goes back to sleep. That's the TLDR version. Yeah. But there's all these horrifying things that he's made, and he is definitely considered to be one of the most influential authors when it comes to horror. Like, we were talking about the Mist, those like tentacle things that are coming out. Direct reference to the writings of H.P. Lovecraft. I mean, all kinds of popular lore. Metallica has songs about Cthulhu. Like I said, there's a South Park episode. He's featured or alluded to in a lot of video games. It's one of the most easily recognized horror creatures in existence.
Yeah.
So, it's one of those things where it's just like you have to, like, it's okay to like the art, you don't have to like the artist.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where I'm at, because stay away from xenophobia and stuff. Yeah.
So this is the top 5 scariest Lovecraftian monster.
Hello horror fans, and welcome back to the Scariest channel on YouTube.
And this
Top
is my
5
favorite
scary videos, the place where eldritch energy swallows itself from the abyss into an infinite cosmic cascade of life, death, and, well, some really spooky stuff. What's going on, guys? As always, I'll be your spirit guide, Jack Finch, as we don our ceremonial robes, light the candles upon the altar, and in his house at Relier, dead Cthulhu waits dreaming in the top 5 scariest Lovecraftian monsters.
Yeah.
It is man's relation to the cosmos, to the unknown, which alone arouses in me the spark of
He's always in creepy roles.
God damn, I just love H.P. Lovecraft and everything that he spawned, every weird little nuance and horrific tick and twisted cosmic entity that somehow made its way from his strange, uniquely creepy brain through his pen and down to the page for all of us to enjoy. I'm going to say H.P. Lovecraft is the godfather of all things horror. Well, what better way for us all to pay tribute to him than to scour the bestiary and pick out the creepiest of the creepy. Before we do that though, folks, you know the drill by now. If you're a fan of this video, H.P. Lovecraft, Cthulhu, or just top 5 scary videos in general, then be a dear and hit that thumbs up button, as well as that subscribe bell so you can stay up to date with our latest and greatest uploads. On with the show. One thing's for sure, you won't find Cthulhu on this list because, come on guys, we're better than that. Kicking off at number 5, Luke Cthulhu. And what better way to start off this list than with the mother of all old gods herself, Luke Cthulhu, also known as Lu Cthulhu, or as a much more horrifying title, the birth womb of the great old ones. This twisted, pulsating mass of a mother was created by James Ambule, with its one and only appearance in the 1998 short story, Correlated Contents, which makes the very little that we do know about it even more terrifying. It poses the question, what does this hulking cosmic entity have in store for us? Well, Lu Cthulhu appears as a colossal conglomeration of innards spanning the size of a large planetary body. Imagine the planet Mars, but instead of a rocky desert-like surface, it's made up of skin and flesh and whatever else lies beneath. Lu Cthulhu possesses a strange slime-bound surface covered in countless thousands of pulsating pustules, which in fact are biological incubators, each containing a great old one in its larval stage. Basically, each one of its warts contains a small, sprightly little baby Cthulhu, or worse, and it's currently unknown how often this has reached maturity. Hopefully for us, it's not a regular occurrence. It's gonna make you go crazy and eat it. Right? Next up at number 4, Groth, which kind of sounds like the sound you make when you do a sick burp, right? Groth, also known as the Harbinger, is an all-powerful outer god that floats without purpose across the endless cosmic abyss like some malevolent...
by H.P. Lovecraft either. Like one of the cool things that happened after how Lovecraft died was a lot of other authors picked up his legacy, and even his stuff is based on other writers too. I want to say Ambrose was around the same time. I'm not 100% sure on that, but one of the things that I read was Chambers, The King in Yellow, which is a very, very all over the place read. It's really hard to kind of narrow down everything in it. Excuse me, and I take my time trying to read because I told you I run the Call of Cthulhu game. It's like Dungeons and Dragons, except it's this stuff. Yeah, and it's like you're dealing with all these like cosmic horrors that are infinite, and just looking upon them for too long will make you go completely insane and stuff like that. And I do a lot of research on this because I want to make sure that my writing is full, and I leave it. I do a lot like Lovecraft, because one of the things that he did was he gave you just enough description to give you an idea, and then your imagination fills in the rest, which in my opinion makes it worse. Because you don't really know. You're like, well, is it this, is it that? And then you keep thinking about it, and you fill in the blanks. And like when he's talking about this, and if we weren't looking at the video, which these are just interpretations, of course, our imagination will fill in whatever else it is. And like I said, depending on how we think of things, and getting grosser, which I like that. And
I think that's the thing.
Cool tool.
The thing about horror is that like a lot of the times it's the unknown and your own imagination that makes it even scarier than maybe what it is.
Oh, without a doubt. Yeah. Because if you tell me it's like, oh no, there's this clown who's going around killing people, or like, okay.
Yeah,
I guess that's
didn't that
weird.
happen in like 2014?
Yeah, it's like that's kind of weird.
Forget what year that was.
Yeah, but like that's why like a lot of times, even when it comes to Game of Thrones and stuff like that, reading the book versus watching the movie or the show or whatever is a completely different experience because we allow ourselves to give our own interpretations, put our own emotions into it, our own experiences, and I think that's what really makes horror novels more scary than horror movies.
Yeah.
Obviously, you don't get the jump scares like that, but I'll tell you this: there's what was the story that I read by H.P. Lovecraft? It's The Whisper in Darkness. And I was reading that at work, and I finished it. And I kid you not, like I had goosebumps. All my hairs on my arms were sticking straight up. I was like, this is gnarly. Like I got to the last 20 pages, and I couldn't put it down. I was like, I'm getting cold chills. This is like legitimately creepy.
Yeah.
But like obviously you get like the thing jumps out of the closet at you. That's like and then you're kind of like, oh okay, that sucked. My heart's beating hard. But like the lasting like real effects is what I really appreciate, especially about Lovecraft's writing and Stephen King's writing.
They like stay with you.
An omniscient nuclear karaoke ball. Groth is the size of a moon and coloured in a rusty shade of orange, all encompassed by an enormous, terrifying red eye, which often closes to avoid the detection of any nearby hostile entities. It has appeared twice in the Cthulhu mythos, first in the 1976 short story The Tugging by Ramsey Campbell, and later in 2004 in the Call of Cthulhu RPG game Splatbook, The Stars Are Right. Groth spends eternity simply drifting throughout the cosmos, while terrifyingly singing its strange song, the music of the spheres. It serves a simple function. Whenever Groth nears a planet, any dormant great old one or outer god on the world will respond to its song and awaken, almost always resulting in the destruction of the planet, the annihilation of all life, or both. In one Lovecraftian instance, Groth was indirectly responsible for awakening the great old one known as the worm that gnaws in the night, who proceeded to consume the alien planet of Shagar from inside out. Pretty metal, eh? Coming in at number 3, Shub Niggurath. You betcha, aka the black goat of the woods with 1,000 young, an outer god who is the very definition of how messed up the Lovecraftian universe can get. Just like Lukathoot, she is a perverse fertility deity responsible for belching forward some of the vilest creatures in the whole of the Cthulhu mythos. She appears as an evil cloud-like entity, an enormous mass which extrudes black tentacles, slime-dripping mouths, and more strangely than any other, short-writhing goat legs. She is the wife of the not-to-be-named one, don't ask, and the wife of Yog-Sothoth, who spawned forth the twins Nub and Yeb. Across the entire mythos, Shub Niggurath is probably the most extensively worshipped by hundreds of twisted alien cultures and even druidic and barbaric cults on Earth. Her dark young are horrifying, pitch-black monstrosities seemingly comprised of ropey tentacles who stand as tall as a tree on a pair of stumpy, you guessed it again, hoofed legs. Also, her milk, yes, you heard that correctly, her milk is often used in cult ceremonies, mutating those that drink it into fierce spawns of her brood. Nevertheless, she's seen as one of the most horrific creatures in horror fiction, being referenced several times by both Stephen King and Terry Pratchett, even making her way referentially into the Doctor Who universe. She's a pretty big deal, put it that way. Next up at number 2, Wilbur Whateley. This guy makes my number 2 spot simply because when I first read The Dunwich Horror, a short story by H.P. Lovecraft written way back when in 1928, for me, he was the most terrifying character throughout the whole damn thing, even more so than his twin brother, the titular Dunwich Horror, who, if we're being honest, was just the sad, misunderstood result of a mad woman and an outer god. Have some sympathy, guys. Wilbur Whateley was born in the rural town of Dunwich, Massachusetts, near the city of Arkham, where most Lovecraftian fiction takes place. The date of his birth was noted as the night before the hills rumbled and the dogs barked incessantly, which was telling because dogs continued to show an instinctual hatred for Wilbur the remainder of his life. Good job, doggos.
There's a 70s or 80s movie.
Let's not glean over it. Wilbur Whateley was a pretty ugly dude. The reason being that, well, he was made up of outer godness. As a child, he was described as a dark, goatish looking infant and displayed an unnatural physical and mental development. He could walk unassisted at 7 months and talk at 11 months. At the age of 4, he began growing facial hair. If you've seen the 1970 B movie, then you'll know what we're getting at, because that final reveal where Wilbur disintegrates into the floor, yeah, that's not nice. And finally, at number 1,
my favorite.
Nyarlathotep.
Oh,
Because,
my
let's
favorite.
be real, no other entity in the Cthulhu mythos is as innately evil as our good old friend Dr. Nyarlathotep. The big bad himself, the ancient evil that walks on 2 legs and has many names. The
So
Black
evil.
Wind, the Crawling Mist, the Haunter of the Dark, the God of the Bloody Tongue. You may not know it, but this guy is pretty much the culmination of every evil fictional overlord since his first appearance in Lovecraft's 1920 prose poem of the same name. He is a creature that carries many masks, but usually appears as a tall, handsome, joyous...
There's fan theories that say that Nikola Tesla would have been that's Tesla, because how he works is he like shows up and he's like, hey guys, I can make your societies better, I can give you technology that you don't understand and stuff like that. And then he basically like gets all of these like followers and worshippers and cultists and then makes them go crazy and then moves on. In my game, the Call of Cthulhu game that I run, Nyarlathotep is my big bad. He's the most evil.
Yeah.
And my players have seen him, and it wasn't a good time. It was not a good time. He almost killed him.
Oh, yeah. Dang. Yeah, Nikola Tesla?
Mm-hmm.
Man with welcoming features. All of this is a ruse, however, as told in 1932's The Dreams in the Witch House. He has 1,000 other forms that will immediately invoke madness to whoever witnesses him.
Good, right?
It's strange because out of most of the outer gods who are evil and all-powerful but never really demonstrate a clear purpose or agenda, Nyarlathotep seems to be deliberately deceptive and manipulative, operating a clear agenda to achieve his twisted goals and making him the most human-like amongst all the outer gods. His one true goal is to spread madness, which is more enjoyable than death and destruction, and it is often suggested in the Cthulhu mythos that eventually he will destroy the entirety of the human race while laughing like a madman. Well, let's hope not, eh? Unfortunately, folks, that's all we've got time for in today's video. Cheers for sticking around.
But yeah, the reason why he is considered so evil is because he's completely sentient.
Yeah.
He knows he's doing evil and likes it.
Ooh.
Like when Cthulhu awakens, he's just a force of destruction.
Yeah.
Nyarlathotep is like, I want these guys to follow me and then make them go crazy and maybe eat them.
Yeah. Jeez.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Yeah, I didn't know much about Lovecraft.
Yeah, there's a lot of really great resources out there. Once I go through, I have the complete collection. I mean, the book is like this, and it's all of his short stories and stuff like that to let you borrow when I'm done. But I'm reading The Shadow over Innsmouth right now, which is a fictitious town in, I believe it's in Massachusetts. And these people made a deal with another deity for money and an endless supply of fish. Except what they have to do is they have to interbreed with these fish creatures, and it's gross. It's so gross. Like some of the, they're called the Deep Ones, and the Deep One hybrids are like these people who are slowly turning fishy-like, and then they get thrown into the ocean to join the rest. It's gross.
Weird.
And in my game right now, that's what the current story arc we're in is on, and they've been infected by that gene, so they're turning into fish people, and they have to figure out how to fix that, and it's my players hate me. We'll just leave it at that. My players hate me. They love it, but they hate me.
Nice.
So.
We have some last couple videos. So we both actually watched this guy before. Do you want to give an explanation?
Yeah, 10-second songs is this YouTube channel. I can't remember. It's Anthony Vincent. Yeah, that's his name. And he's got his own band. I believe his band is called Set the Charge. But he'll take like popular songs from various different music styles. Like what's really nice about him is he just appreciates music.
Yeah.
And a lot of people go, you listen to that music's terrible, blah blah blah. He actually seems like he can find really great qualities about different styles. Well, for instance, like he'll take popular songs and then sing them as if he is a different musical artist.
Yeah.
Or band, like Johnny Cash, or like even extreme
System
stuff.
of a Down.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like Tech Nine rappers, stuff like that. And it's so interesting, like how he can just take on this different style, like that. Now, what I've been told is he records them all and then kind of splices them, but I don't know, like. It kind of looks like he goes smoothly into it, but that's the magic of
editing.
Editing for sure, which I'm sure this video will need a lot of. It's just really interesting to me, like to see, like I would never see Metallica sing like I don't know if he does Britney Spears with that one, but it's just kind of fun, and it shows a huge talent. I think it's really interesting. Like his voice range is very impressive, and he does the music and stuff like that too. So it's entertaining, it's fun. Put you in a good mood watching it. So I just really enjoy it quite a bit.
Yeah.
Apologies for the volume, maybe. I don't know.
So this is one of your favorites, Dark Horse.
Yeah, Katy Perry's Dark Horse. I'm a huge metalhead. Like, I like Slayer and Metallica and Pantera and stuff like that, but the Dark Horse cover is really excellent. It's really... And the song's good. Don't tell anybody I said that.
Alright, let's see what we got here. 20 different styles.
Y'all know what it is. Katy Perry, Dark Horse, and 20 different styles. 10-second song.
Gotta have to shout out.
Let's rage.
And he's got a great range.
Yeah.
Nirvana. Are you gonna put like clips of these in the video?
Yeah.
Here's Michael Jackson.
Yeah.
So you wanna play with me?
From Iron Maiden.
Yeah, that's my first concert was Iron Maiden.
Oh, really?
Whatever happened to him?
I don't know. I forgot about it. Oh yeah, your favorite.
My favorite bands. It's Sinatra. Still my favorite band.
Yeah.
I don't care what anybody thinks.
Have a rock.
Solid.
Door.
I think you should change the video to like 20-ish.
Yeah.
You're a little more into the hip hop realm than me, so.
Yeah, Tech 9 is so fast.
I couldn't do it. Run out of breath.
Yeah.
I personally really like the Red Hot Chili Peppers.
People have been hating on the Red Hot Chili Peppers lately.
I love the Red Hot Chili Peppers. I've always liked them.
Yeah.
The only problem I have with the Red Hot Chili Peppers is they have two song subjects: heroin and California.
Yeah.
That's it. That is it.
That's all I got.
No, but like Under the Bridge is a beautiful song, and like Danny California is fun. Like I like the Red Hot Chili Peppers. I'm not going to say they're my favorite band, but they come on. I'm like, okay, like give it away now. Come on.
Yeah,
Can't go wrong.
I don't know. I think like recently there's been like this. People maybe they become so like of course you like Red Hot Chili Peppers that people are like you like the Red Hot Chili Peppers really? But I think they're good. Like they got a good. I don't know. They've endured over this.
Like
20
at least
20 years?
20, 30 years, I would say. Yeah, at least. And I don't know. Like everybody's got an opinion.
They're were they in the Super Bowl recent like a couple years ago?
I don't sports.
And they were wearing. I don't know. They did like the halftime show. I forget what year it was, but they were wearing this weird outfit it almost looked like what's the tattoo shirts?
Oh, okay, yeah.
Eddie what?
Oh, Ed Hardy.
Ed Hardy.
Yeah.
They were wearing like these Ed Hardy looking like leggings and stuff, and it looked a little weird, but
I mean, I guess it's better than just wearing tube socks like they used to do back in the days. So
yeah, but I don't know. I don't think they deserve the hate.
I agree, man. Like, there's only a handful of bands out there that's just like, yeah, I understand why you hate this band.
And their bass, like Flea, like their bass,
phenomenal bass player.
Like any band where the bassist matters is a good band. There's so many bands where you're like the bassist could be anybody.
Well, it's like I would put Flea up in like top 10 like when it comes to bass players. My favorite bass player is Les Claypool from Primus because that dude I don't know how he makes those sounds.
Yeah.
And that dude is incredibly strange.
Yeah.
And their
but like
music's
Flea, he's been in so many different things. Like he was in that TV show,
The Wild Thornberrys.
Yeah, the Wild.
Yeah,
And then they based the character on the. There was like a cartoon where they were all wearing luchador masks. I forget what that was called.
yeah. I know what you're talking about.
I can't remember.
I know what you're talking about.
And then he was in Big Lebowski.
Oh, right.
I've
never seen
epic
Big
movie.
Lebowski.
What? Dude.
I know.
I put him in a couple of my. I put a couple quotes in my last video, but you gotta watch it. It's one of my favorite. Like, it's the most rewatchable movie.
Ellie and I said that we're gonna watch The Big Lebowski and get stuff to make White Russian.
Yeah.
So that'll be a night. So.
Well, David Sherrill down at Arrowhead, he does like every year. He does at the Palace.
I know, and I've never gone.
He
He's
rents the
invited
whole
me
thing
to,
out.
I know.
And I've always wanted to go, but I'm always like working that day.
Yeah, I'm usually because I work until 8:00 at night typically at work.
Yeah, that would be a good time to go if he opens it.
Oh yeah, as long as you get a White Russian.
Yeah.
I don't really think that I could ever watch that movie without having a White Russian.
Yeah.
I feel like it'd be like sacrilegious or something.
Yeah. I never heard of Louis Prima.
I'm not familiar myself.
Boyz II Men.
I had a friend who was obsessed with Boyz II Men when we were kids.
Josh was obsessed with that.
Really? That's weird because my friend's name was Josh too.
Oh, really?
One of my favorite bands. Love Typo Negative. Little gothic metal.
Yeah.
Doom metal.
John Mayer.
Which is a shot.
That's
Because him and Katy Perry dated, I believe.
Yeah, oh, that's right. Yeah. John Mayer. I like that ending. That was good.
Rude.
Yeah. And then they have one more Michael Jackson Thriller. Is that Thriller? Is that what
Yeah, it's Thriller.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
They did this for Halloween too, so how very appropriate.
Nice. Ooh, spooky.
Yeah, he like dressed up and everything. Yeah.
Does he wear a leather jacket? Does it? Oh. Oh.
Yeah, he did like the latex and everything. Just how blank he is. It's spot on.
That's good.
You know how much I like that.
Oh, he did the okay. Marilyn Manson. I got a funny story. So Marilyn Manson is from Canton, Ohio. Mm-hmm. And my stepbrother used to work at Arby's down in Canton.
Yeah.
And that's where Marilyn Manson and his dad, they were like big Arby's fans.
Really nice.
So my stepbrother met Marilyn Manson, and he was like his dad would come in like a couple times a week. And so he was like, yeah, I was really good friends with Marilyn Manson's dad. I was like, that's so crazy.
That's wild.
And he was like, one day he showed up without like the makeup on and stuff.
Yeah, just being Brian Warner.
Just being a normal guy.
I almost had an opportunity to meet him because one of my friends from high school went to school with his dad. And it just kind of never happened.
Was it
Heritage? He went to Heritage Christian and he went to Glen Oak. Yeah.
Yeah. So.
And I almost met him, and it just kind of never happened. I don't really remember why. But it's just like, I personally am not a huge Marilyn Manson music fan, but I'd still sit down and,
talk to him.
Yes, well, we were talking about absinthe earlier, actually. Oh, yeah. He has his own absinthe.
What?
And I guess it's, like, critically acclaimed. Like, people say it's wonderful. I'll have to give you that when we're done with this, or even while maybe at the end, we'll look up that link. Because I think I have it favorited on my phone, and you can get his absinthe through that site. So
that's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Spice Girls, Scary Spice. Through it, dude. I got a great Stevie Wonder story.
I love Stevie Wonder. He's so talented.
So, one day when I was out in LA at a Chicken and Waffles, and we knew somebody famous was there. Like they were in like another part of the restaurant, and people were going up and taking pictures. And
cool.
So I had to go drop a deuce.
As you do after eating chicken and waffles. It's dense, you know.
And so I was sitting in there on my phone. This was probably like 2013 or something. So I had a BlackBerry back then.
This is probably very shortly, like we would have met very shortly after that, right? Yeah. Well, no, we probably already knew it. I started working at Tivana in 2011.
Yeah. So, because me and my friend Dan, we would take a trip out there. We took a trip out there for like 2 weeks. And so I was sitting there on my phone, and Stevie Wonder walks in, and there's a guy like guiding him to the back, to like, he's just another stall. But Stevie Wonder was like pushing, and he pushed open my stall somehow. Like I thought I locked it, and he walks in, and I was like, hey, someone's in here. And he was like, oh, and he looked at me. Well, looked, but and I was like, he was like, I'm sorry, man, I'm so sorry, and he shut the door. And
I'm sorry I have to make this joke. At least you didn't see anything.
Yep, that's true. But
I'm going to leave now.
That's my Stevie Wonder story. So after that, like, I really wish I would have, like, I don't know. After that, I was like, that was weird. And I was like, everybody's like, you should have talked to him. Or like, had him sign some toilet paper or something. Because that would have been hilarious. But yeah, I never did talk to him after that. But that's my one Stevie Wonder story. And I actually didn't, like, at first I didn't know who he was. Because, like, I know what he looked like back then. But I didn't know what he looked like now. But he had the dreadlocks.
Yeah,
sure. He has, like, little puka.
Back in his 80s, 90s kind of. Yeah.
He's got, like, little shells and stuff. And I was like, I had no idea. And then I walked out, and my friends were, like, sitting there. And I was like, they were like, did you talk to that guy? Like, that's Stevie Wonder. And I was like, he just walked in on me in the bathroom. They were like, what?
He stepped in when I was pooping. It
was
surreal celebrity moment.
Yeah. But
I've only got a couple of celebrities I've met, so not too many.
Because I lived in California off and on for a few years, and the only other celebrities I met were the Beach Boys.
Okay, yeah,
They were coming out of a restaurant at like near the Staples Center, and then I met a couple of like YouTube people too.
Sure. Yeah.
But other than that, like, and I met Family Force 5. Mm-hmm. They went to my church when I went out there.
Really nice.
Yeah, we had met at a Denny's because my friend was interviewing them for his YouTube channel. And then later on, I met them at a church I was going to, and I was like, "Dude, what the heck? Like, this is cool."
Nice. I think the most famous people that I've ever met was I met Jerry Only, who's the bass player for the Misfits. Mm-hmm. I got his autograph. Really nice dude. I met Adam from Killswitch Engage.
Oh.
They opened for Slayer in 2004, and I'd never listened to Killswitch because I was 80s 90s thrash metal kid, and I walked out to the merch table, and he's got
the big
old mutton chops. I mean, these things almost they practically touch them.
Yeah.
But I walked down. I was like, "Yeah, you're the guitar player that's just up there." He's like, "Yeah, dude." And he's like, "What'd you think?" I was like, "I've never listened to you guys before." I was like, "You guys sounded amazing."
Yeah.
And we because my friend Harley, who was with us at the time, that's who he went to see. I went to see Slayer because I'm old school, 90s satanic thrash metal, I guess. But they're not really satanic. But I BS'd with him for like 5 to 10 minutes. I was like, well, shoot, this is when like Howard Jones was still with them. Yeah. His voice, beautiful voice. And I was about to buy their CD, and I went to grab it, and he goes, hey. He's like, you don't want that one. He handed me another one. I got home and opened it. The CD was autographed by everybody in the band. He sold it to me for the same price as everybody else. I wasn't supposed to get that. I had like a little mini freak out moment, so it was pretty cool. But those two were the main. Like, I can't think of anybody else who's like super really famous that I met. Like, I used to go to down to the Oracle, and one of the famous Steelers quarterbacks was there, I believe, at one time. And
okay.
I'm not a humongous sports guy. Like, I'll watch basketball. I like basketball. Like, I remember watching, when the Cavs won the championship, and we were pretty hype.
Yeah.
We were pretty happy about that, but we get kind of shafted on football, except for Ohio State. So, but those are mostly musicians and stuff like that.
Yeah. When I lived out in California, my friend, he ran a YouTube channel where they interviewed bands, and so I went to Warped Tour a couple times with him, and we did
R.I.P.
We got and we got to interview Taking Back Sunday.
Oh, cool.
Of Mice and Men. I don't know if you know them.
I know who they are.
More newer.
Hardcore.
For Today. They were pretty
Oh,
cool. They were awesome.
Man, I'm jealous.
And then,
Saul of Tarsus.
Do you know
so
Jeffree Star?
Yeah, I know who he is. Yeah.
We were filming in front of his their tour buses, and we filmed in front of his particularly, and he came out and he was wearing like a tank top and like booty shorts, and he was like in the window like showing his nipple like in the shot. So there were parts where you were like, I don't know if we should use this.
You have to tell Ellie that funny. Because she loves his makeup line.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It was hilarious. Like, I'm pretty sure they probably have some footage, and like there was obviously some parts that we had to leave in, but you know, it was funny that
you do.
Yeah, we were like, well, YouTube really can't take this down.
Yeah, I
mean, like, I don't know. But yeah, it was funny though.
Depends on who whines about it.
Yeah. Let's keep on going.
That Stevie Wonder stuff's great.
Yeah. I love Stevie. I love Stevie Wonder. Yeah.
I mean, come on, like it's a metal god. Let's be honest.
Did you hear about when Post Malone had a feature with Ozzy Osbourne?
People didn't know who Ozzy was.
All the people listening to Post Malone were like, "This Ozzy guy is pretty awesome." Like,
is he new?
It's really cool for Post Malone to put him on like that.
I will say though, I do actually really respect Post Malone. Like, you know, as somebody who is mostly into like heavy metal and punk and classic rock, like Post Malone is a fantastic musician.
He knows a lot.
Well, he used to be in a metalcore band. Yeah. And like he plays guitar. He's talked about wanting to dabble in country, and like I really feel like he's another one of those people. Like people kind of dog on him a little bit. It's like I don't know. I feel like he's a pretty talented musician. I think he's pretty solid.
He seems like a genuinely nice guy.
I assume he's high most of the time. But, hey, you know, whatever helps you cope, I guess. But
probably more drunk off of Bud.
Those, mango seltzers. Those commercials are great. I don't know. I'm like, if I had the opportunity to meet Post Malone, I definitely would. He seems like a very genuine person, and he's another one of those people who really respects music. And you know, for someone to be like, you know, I have what I like, but I can find good in all things. I think that's a really respectable perspective.
Yeah.
So, because I used to not be that way. If it wasn't metal, I didn't want it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Tom Waits.
Oh, yeah.
I love Tom Waits. It's depressing.
Yeah.
It's like I want a cigar and a glass of bleach.
Yeah. I don't know if I've ever listened to Oingo Boingo.
I think Old Age. This is my realm. Gotta get some gutturals in there.
You're out of time.
Ooh.
Dude's super talented. He's just talented.
It takes a lot to get that many different songs. Yeah, Rick rolled. That's pretty good.
I was really impressed with this video. Like, there's no way I could do anything like this.
Pretty good.
Close your eyes and...
Rob Zombie.
I would love to see Rob Zombie live. You see, like, you've seen Beetlejuice, right?
Yeah.
Like, there's a shrimp coming up and grabbing you.
Today's dude. Oh, I didn't know that.
I didn't realize there was some bones. Okay.
Alright, yeah.
So I don't know, like who else is gonna watch the video. I saw Typo Negative 3 months before their lead singer died.
Oh wow!
And at the time, he his whole life he struggled with drugs and stuff like that, and had like suicidal tendencies and stuff. And he came out on stage and like just the way that his name was Peter Steele, their singer. His real name was Peter Rateschik. Wow. Because I want to say his family was maybe Ukrainian. Maybe.
Yeah.
But this dude is like, seriously, he was like 6'7" and just a wall of muscle. Scary. You'll have to look up a picture of him later. He was big.
Yeah.
Like he was the bass player and the singer of the band, and instead of having a guitar strap, he just wore this big thick chain and would play like that. And
dang.
Their show was so wonderful, and the person I was with at the time, my girlfriend at the time, there was a meet and greet, and I was like, it's Peter Steele. She didn't want to wait. And I was like, cool, we'll see him next time.
Oh, no. That's sad.
And I was like,
dang it.
No, he was supposedly like a really wonderful dude who would like his opening bands would have crappy equipment. He was like, yeah, you're not using that, you can use ours. Yeah. And like, these are people who are like signed to a major label. He's like, no, just use ours. So
that's cool.
Really great show.
Yeah.
I have to have you listen to some songs by them later. They're like goth doom metal and just super impressive.
You remember Steven Reisdorf? He was part of our like group when we hung out like back with Josh Hill and
did he go to Baxter's with us?
Yeah. He was
I'd have to see him, but
he's got a beard, always wearing like a white t-shirt. He would go to he's won a couple of jackets from Winking Lizard. Yeah.
I've got one.
And he's a cool guy. But anyways, he was real into like metal and like more like the math rock kind of side.
You have to show him if you're friends with him on Facebook. You have to show me later. We'll do it after this because
we've been
doing this
for a while. He was a real big fan of Dying Fetus.
Oh yeah, Dying Fetus, some black metal. Okay, yeah.
I remember you put him on. I'm like, whoa, I feel like I'm about to die.
Well, it's like some of the crazy stuff I like is like deicide, which like the word deicide means to kill God. Dang. And man, I'm trying to think of some of the really extreme bands I like. There's one called Infant Annihilator that's really gross.
Well, there was Du Hast.
Oh, I'm going to see Rammstein for the third time in August.
Oh, really?
I'm going to go see him again. Best live show ever.
Yeah.
Oh, man, I'm so mad because at a live festival, Demon Hunter was going to be there.
Oh, no.
And it got canceled.
Yeah.
I'm so mad. Yeah,
Demon
Hunter and Impending Doom are like my favorite Christian metal bands.
When I lived in Arizona, I saw the Chariot.
Nice, yeah.
Impending Doom, Texas in July, and what was the other one? Four Today. Yeah, that was a crazy show because it was like Chariot's like farewell tour. Yeah. So they like went crazy.
Yeah, I don't know if Impending Doom does anything anymore, but they're like Christian death metal. It's like really wild. It's like like Murderer and Death Will Reign. Those songs hit. Yeah. They're so heavy.
Yeah. It was great.
They get those Death Will Reign. Yeah, it's ugh.
We'll see. We got two more.
Three more. Yeah, I'm almost done.
Vincent Price.
Oh yeah, the narrators too. Yeah. Vincent Price was a G. Classic.
Anyways.
Stand and face the hounds of hell.
Twilight Zone.
Close to show.
Busta Rhymes.
Not a fan.
Yeah, I never really got into it. But I had a lot of friends that were.
Nice. School blues.
Yeah.
That's why I like he just crosses over genre.
There were like 3 Robert Johnsons back in that era, and everybody confused them for each other.
Yeah.
I like that.
It's just a fun channel.
Yeah. Nice. Well, there we go.
Yeah, we went through all the YouTube stuff, so...
I got a little bit left.
I do not, unfortunately.
Well, those were some good beers, man. I appreciate you bringing them.
Of course, man.
And I appreciate you being a part of.
Yeah, man, it was
Thirsty
fun.
Thursday.
Am I your first guest?
I think so. Yeah. Look at that.
No pressure.
Yeah, that should be a good video. And any other parting words you have for the?
No, it's just like share experiences with people. Like one of the reasons why I brought some of my favorite beers for Adam is because I want to share my favorite things with my friends and. I don't know, just it was a good time. I'm really grateful that you had me, and hopefully, in the nearish future, I'll be able to have you on for when we start our channel.
Yeah, boy. So, and what are you thinking of calling it?
I think we're going to call it So You Like to Drink with a question mark, because I have a group that I used to have a group that was called the Summit County Brew Path Tour, and I'd change it every year, and then we kind of decided that we wanted to start checking out wineries and distilleries and different craft bars that just kind of had fun things, because there's a lot of of craft bars have like board games and video games and barcades and stuff like that. And I was struggling for a really long time, and I couldn't figure out what I wanted to name it. And one day I was like, okay, what does this have in common? We go do this stuff, and it turned into So You Like to Drink with a question mark on the end of it. And my girlfriend was talking to me about what I should name it, and a lot of the stuff that we were kind of talking about was like very tongue-in-cheek and cheeky, and I was like, I don't know, I kind of want to do something that might be a little more classy. And I was like, well, why don't I just use the group name? She was like, why don't you use the group name? But we've got some silly ideas that we want to do. Like, we've got this friend Mike who, when he drinks and continues to drink, he turns from Mike to Sassy Mike. And he gets real sassy, which is funny because he's a very mild-mannered guy and like very quiet. And, well, he's not quiet. That's maybe a stretch. But we kind of termed this thing called Sassy Mike TM. And we want to do we want to do really serious, like culture-based, intelligence-based history, and we'll do research and stuff like that. And then every once in a while we'll have like a stupid sketch where it's just like somebody being silly. And we kind of wanted, like, my thought process, if you're familiar with the Food Network stuff, I wanted to do something like Good Eats with Alton Brown. Where like we do funny things that would keep people's interest, but also informative things that would help people learn history and drinking culture and stuff like that. Because I really do feel like, drinking shouldn't be just about getting drunk. It should be about enjoying each other's company. And
appreciating like the art that is like
there's
alcohol.
a lot of science that it's basically chemistry. If you want to be real fancy, it's alchemy. But I don't know. Like I think that as long as you do it responsibly and you do it with restraint and respect towards what it can do to you and what it can affect, that there's nothing wrong with having a couple drinks.
Drink responsibly.
One of my favorite quotes still to this day is Benjamin Franklin, that beer is proof that God loves us and wants us to be happy.
There we go. Founding father right there. So I appreciate you coming on the show. It's a good time. This is Thirsty Thursdays, and we'll see you next week.
Like and subscribe.
And leave a comment. Tell us if you know about some of these beers, if you tried them before, if you, I don't know,
want to correct me because I pretend like I know what I'm talking about.
We're not experts, we're just enthusiasts. So we appreciate you guys for stopping by, and until next week, I'm Adam Robb. This is my buddy.
I'm James Umbaugh.
And you guys have a good one. I usually have a drink to be like toast.
Well, we drank them.
We drank them all.
Let's go get another one, I guess.